Shay's not here. Do we have
You okay?
the statement? Everybody be nice to each other.
Huh? What does it make you do?
Well, scare you.
Send you a text?
All right. We are going to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Dorman, will you lead us in the pledge, please? Okay, there is no action in closed session. I will report, and I'm doing this because we don't have a board president yet, but I will report that prior to closed session that our new board members were sworn in, and so we're very glad to have Patsy and Annette joining us, and Zoe re-upping for another 4 years. And so we are going to start looking for approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second it.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. That passes 5-0. So we are going to start with our annual organizational meeting. Trustees, this is one of those times where, sometimes we avoid being in the limelight and not necessarily wanting to step forward. This is one of those times when you can be bold without being arrogant. If it's okay to say that you are interested, it is okay to nominate each other. This is your guys' board meeting. You guys are the trustees. There are only the 5 of you who can fill these roles. So this is an okay time to, if you are interested in stepping up and taking this extra level of leadership and service, that it's okay to do that. With that, I'm going to open the floor to you for discussion or nominations.
First one being the nomination.
No, sorry, yes, sorry. This is why I don't do this as often. Yes, so nominations for the board president.
I would nominate Zoe Francisco for board president.
I second.
Discussion?
Any discussion?
Thank you. I appreciate the nomination, and I'd be willing to do it.
Excellent.
Any other nominations? All right, those in favor of Zoe Francisco serving as our board president, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, 5-0. Before we move on,
Okay.
congratulations, you get this back. I can't be trusted.
Okay, one of the things that Mr. Crane says is it's going to really start getting real now. Okay. Okay, on to our elections. We got election of board clerk. Do I have a nomination for board clerk? Okay, is there anybody that's interested in being a board clerk? Would be a wonderful thing. We do need a board clerk.
I'll do it. I'll second her doing it.
What's that, Allison? So, okay, we have a nomination for Allison to be board clerk and a seconded by Annette, I believe it was.
Allison, did you say that you want to do it?
I said that I wanted to do it,
And that's
but
what she wanted to.
Oh, it was Annette, sorry.
If you want
It's
to do
okay.
it, Allison, you can do it.
Oh, I thought it was Allison.
No, and that's,
Oh, man, I totally thought she's,
Okay, so we have a nomination for Annette Lee to be clerk and seconded by Allison?
I'll
Yes.
second.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Pass 5-0. Okay, I think you need to change seats then.
Yeah. We're,
Should.
I couldn't be trusted with it,
Huh? It's up to you guys.
if you want, yeah. Or- Okay.
And we'll just go on to the next one, which isn't a nomination, but it is an action item. It's the election of board secretary. The superintendent, Jeff Crane, will be elected as secretary of the board of trustee for 2025 year.
I accept.
Okay. So since that's an action item though,
Yes.
do we have a motion to approve Jeff Crane as our board secretary?
Move to approve.
Second?
second.
It's been moved and seconded. Not sure who seconded it.
Patsy did.
Patsy. Moved by Chris, seconded by Patsy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass 5-0. Okay, annual appointments. These appointments, the first two, I don't believe are in action. We're going to appoint Superintendent Jeff Crane and
They
CBO.
should all be action.
Oh, they all should be action? Okay, this is an action. Appoint
Sorry.
Superintendent Jeff Crane and CBO Tanya Michelle to Signal 1 and 2 JPAs for insurance. JPA means Joint Power of Authority. Do I have a motion to approve the appointment for the Signal 1 and 2?
Move to approve.
I second.
It's been moved by Chris, seconded by Allison. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passed 5-0. Number 2, appoint Superintendent Jeff Crane to SELPA Governance Council. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
And second? It's been moved by Annette. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And seconded, or moved by Allison, seconded by Annette. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 5-0. Okay, then we have appoint Jenny Lacy as parent advisor to the SELPA committee. Do I have a motion to approve Jenny Lacy as parent advisor to the SELPA committee?
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
I second.
And seconded by Allison. And I just want to make sure for the discussion purposes that Jenny's willing to take that position?
Yes,
Okay.
we have communicated with her.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Passed 5-0. Okay, approval of proposed board calendar meeting dates for 2025. It was presented to us. Mr. Crane, do you want to say anything about that?
These are Wednesdays throughout the year. We've done the best we can to try to avoid when breaks and things will be, realizing that our 25-26 school year calendar has not yet been finalized. So we may run into some challenges with that, but trying to take into account having regular meetings, trying to take into account things we have to do for budget. The series of Wednesdays are what we propose.
So are we anticipating to do a July 30th meeting after doing 2 in June, or is that just on there as a placeholder in case we need to?
No, the July 30th meeting will be there. That's the one where we can get approval from the board for people who we hire over the summer, prior to the start of the school year. But one of the things that we did from this year's calendar to the 24 meeting dates to the 25 meeting dates is we push that August one, so it's a little bit later, so we're not having them 2 weeks apart from each other.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the calendar for 2025?
I'll move to approve the calendar for 2025.
Okay, it's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Allison. Any more discussion? Any questions? I had been just thinking about it and was wondering if anybody would like to think about possibly moving our meetings from Wednesday to Thursdays. And the reason why I thought about it was sometimes, the board meetings have to be posted 72 hours ahead of time, and sometimes that's as late as Sunday at 4 o'clock. If I was just thinking in my mind that if we kept that 72 hours, and had it on a Thursday, then sometimes it wouldn't be posted till Monday, but I would hope that past practice and what we're used to is it being posted by Friday and as late as Sunday, but it might give us that extra day. It was just a thought. I just wanted to present it to the board and have any discussion.
I assume we're not set in stone once we approve that calendar if we decide to change it.
True, yeah, we had some that we had to change this year. The other thing that we might run into on Thursday nights is that we have basketball scheduled on Thursday nights.
During basketball season, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
during basketball season, obviously.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
we
know
just
when-
have
I
a
don't know when
really quick
baseball's
board meeting.
schedule
No,
is.
just kidding.
So Zoe, is your concern, I don't know if this is on or not, is your concern more about having more time to prepare for us as the board to read the board packet?
Yeah, so just my feeling was just a thought of, if you have 4 work days that you can research, ask questions, sometimes if you get it late, and also too for the community, the staff members, they can come to work on Monday. If it's posted Friday at 4 o'clock or Sunday at 4 o'clock, they come to work Monday and they go, oh my goodness, it's Wednesday. I don't really have the time to research it. That was my only thought of moving it to Thursdays.
What if we just back up the cycle of getting all, and I know what I'm asking. I know this is not an easy thing to do, but what if we just change the cycle of information getting to the district office, trying to get it a little bit earlier so that we can just back up how early, so that it isn't just done, 72 hours in advance, so that it.
Right. Agreed, and that's a district office.
Question.
Well, and I don't know, in the time that I've been here, which is, all of 7 months, I think that they've all been out on Friday. So,
Yeah.
that's giving an extra 48 hours above and beyond the 72. If we make it Thursday, 72 hours becomes Monday. And so if we're going back to Friday now that we're adding an extra 72 hours instead of 48, I'm kind of, you guys are the board, we'll do what you want. My thought is that if we are on Wednesday, we're giving whatever 72 plus 48 is. 108 hours? Is that right? 108? I can't do math in front of everybody.
Where's our math teacher?
2 and 48, it's a bunch. So we're giving more time. We have talked, one of the things that we talked about when we did our study session in August was trying to get, because the documents aren't required to be posted until 24 hours ahead, but at the request of the board, we started posting some of the bigger things, making sure those were posted the Friday when those go up. So for instance, like our budget report, those kinds of things would be posted the full time. What we're leaving towards the end is some of those things that we might get some last minute moves on, like personnel action and those kinds of things that we're leaving until that 24 hours. So we're trying to be responsive and have as much information out as early as we can.
Yeah, I think the last time we discussed it, at least from what I remember, was specifically that it was really unfair for Janelle to have to come in on the Sunday because people didn't get her information on time. So if we're making sure that happens, I think I really, I mean, I'll take whatever, if I have one night to read everything, then I have one night to read everything, but I really don't like seeing Janelle having to send it out on Sunday.
On Sunday at 4 o'clock, yeah.
And it's 120 hours, by the way.
Okay, thank you for the math.
Had to do it by hand.
Okay, is there any more discussion on that?
Is it working to get the board packet out on Fridays?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's those attached items that sometimes might need more time, but if it's, that you have to have it attached 24 hours ahead of time, then so be it, I mean, that's,
And again, we're doing that on some of just the logistical ones, the ones that are longer and take time to read. We're trying to get those out with the full 120 hours ahead of time,
okay.
now that I've done the math.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to accept the calendar that was presented to us for Wednesdays for 2025 calendar year. Is there any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, and opposed? Passed by 0. Okay, at this time, the board are, at this time, we hear from board members, superintendent and student board member, who Shay is not here tonight, I'm sorry. We'll start with the board. This is where I get messed up. Okay, we'll start with the board members. Is there any board member that would like to share something?
Yeah, just real quick, I bummed Shay's not here, but I don't know if anybody else was able to catch her senior project, which was directing William Shakespeare's The Twelfth Night. They did it on Friday and Saturday in the MP. I think it was a huge success. Obviously, I think she's going to pass her senior project, but just wanted to thank her for putting on a great show. It was very entertaining.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else have anything to say? Okay, I just want to thank the principal. I do have something to say. I just want to thank the principals for taking me around and showing me their campuses. I'm sorry I didn't get up to Cobb. That's my first and next. And I will be reaching out to you about that. But, it's just fun to go around, and it just reconnects me with staff and students, which reminds me of why I'm here. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for taking your time for doing that. Okay, and Mr. Crane.
I always have something to say.
Yes, you do.
Again, want to piggyback on what Mr. Oakes talked about with the 12th night. Saw that. That was wonderful. Also, Saturday morning, another one of our seniors coordinated wreaths across America. Down at the cemetery, it was cold, it was wet, but a good time was had by everyone. I didn't see anybody fall down. I don't know if anybody did, but I don't think that happened. It's been great to go. Basketball and wrestling are both up and running. When I say running, I mean wrestling really does a lot of running. I see them outside my office on the regular. Went to the Winter Fest rally last week, which a lot of things, there's always positives and things that make you go, The Ballet Folklorico performed. That was amazing. Eggnog chugging wasn't something that I had considered before. I always thought of eggnog as sipping, and I see some of the adults looking like, ooh. Yep, that was the approach that I had, especially because they had to chug and then run down to the end of the gym and back. Anyway, things that made you go, We're going to talk later tonight about our budget. There's some good news in that we're able to positively certify, but there's also still some heavy news along with that. And then we're also going to talk about academics, and I'll share with you information about test scores and our dashboard that, again, shows the focus and determination of our students and staff. Want to welcome our new trustees to the board. And also, as we're getting close to taking a couple of weeks off for winter holidays, want to wish everybody a great holiday season, however you happen to celebrate that. Hopefully you get a good time with your family and loved ones. And so I know that's something more towards the end of the meeting. We still have a lot to do, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that that's the wish of the district, that we have some resting and relaxing time.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Crane. And now, reports to the board. Is there an MTA representative that would like to report? Okay. CSEA representative.
No, no.
You might have to push that top button.
Okay. Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Jennifer Hitzen, representing CSEA Chapter 228 as Vice President. I would like to report we are actively engaged in negotiations. Our following negotiation dates are January 13th, 2025 and February 11th, 2025. We plan to hold a Know Your Rights training for our members in the beginning of the new year. We are also happy to report that there will be new hires within the SPED department, new district-wide custodians, and a district-wide van driver. However, we have received some bad news that there is still a deficit elimination plan and that it will be implemented. This means the elimination of even more classified job positions. The list of 2025-26 proposed reduction items include the elimination of 3 full-time custodians, our technology assistant position, a translator position, the elimination of 9 instructional aid positions, as well as the elimination of 3 campus supervisor positions. We would like to remind the board that in June of this year, the district cut 20 classified job positions and reduced 6 classified position hours, affecting a total of 26 classified positions. It seems the burden has fallen upon the backs of classified staff once again. Do you have any questions for me?
Is there any questions? Clarification? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Van Pelt? Ray Green?
Good evening, trustees, member of the public. Welcome, new board member. I'm not going to try and pronounce your last name. I'll probably embarrass myself, and welcome back, Trustee Lee. Ray Green, Van Pelt Construction Services. So we essentially have 3 projects that are under review by authorities having jurisdiction. We have 2 projects in DSA. One is the middle school gym. The other is the new building out at Cowdy Valley Elementary School, the fire alarm, data, and PA. And we have the Cowdy Valley Elementary School waistline connection that is under review with Hidden Valley Lake Services right now. All other projects have been put on hold until we got on the same page with the CBO. We are there at this point, so we will now step back, get with Superintendent Crane, Director of Facilities, Michael Del Sarto, and we'll reprioritize projects and decide what we're moving forward with the money that we have remaining. Okay, questions?
I have a question. Is it working? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wondered about the water meter situation and in building the new gym, to what extent you've worked with the idea of whether or not we need a new water meter, if we're going to tie into existing water meters. And the reason I ask is because I'm hearing through the community that we have multiple water meters at the main campus. Each one has a base rate, which is really, really expensive. And I just learned this, otherwise I would have asked probably Superintendent Crane, but I just thought of it when you walked up there with the new gym. I mean, we're not going to try to install yet another water meter for this project, are we?
No, ma'am. There'll be no water meter. We'll be tying into existing water mains.
Okay.
And the water meter is not something that the design team has looked at or assessed. So we've looked at existing infrastructure and where the most convenient location is for us to tie in.
Okay.
So the water meter situation has not been addressed. I do also know that I want to point out that you have a tremendous amount of electrical services on this campus. There's 4 that I'm aware of. And that's just on the campus itself, which is not typical.
And that's useful information because it's expensive, or
No, it's just not normal for a school to have so many electrical services.
does it cost more?
No.
Do we also have
It's-
a lot of water meters for a school district?
Pardon?
Is there a lot of water meters for a school district too? Is that what the?
Yeah, I mean, typically, any authority having jurisdiction, so PG&E, their preference is you get 1 meter per campus. And if you don't have enough electrical capacity, then you upgrade your electrical service.
Would you say it's worth asking Superintendent Crane to look into our electrical meters and our water meters to see if there's any way to consolidate or realize any cost savings if we were to revamp those
So
systems?
so this is something we kind of took on ourselves. We're having discussions with PG&E to ensure, and this was at the direction of Superintendent Crane, the approval of Superintendent Crane. We're having discussions with PG&E to make sure that we're getting our best rate at every meter. So I'd be happy to look into the water meter situation as well. But it's not something we've looked at.
Could you just maybe figure out whether it's worth looking into, whether it's, if there's
Yeah,
any-
we can do some research.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but. Okay.
Happy to look into that. Any other question? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Okay, next, CalFresh Healthy Living presentation.
If you want, if it's easier, you can take it out and hold it.
Good?
Right now.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good
How you
evening.
doing?
Good evening, everyone, members of the board, as well as the general public. My name is Naomi Suematsu. I am the Health Programs Coordinator for the CalFresh Healthy Living Program through Lake County Health Services. I am currently working with a few of the elementary schools through Middletown Unified School District. So I just wanted to do a little overview to share the work that is being done. So just a brief overview of the CalFresh Healthy Living Program. It was formerly known as Champions for Change and is federally known as SNAP Ed, which is under the umbrella of the SNAP program. And CalFresh Healthy Living is all about educating the public, teaching them about eating healthy, how to spend their food dollars more wisely, increasing physical activity, physical education, and again, just trying to improve the overall health of the community members. So a little bit about CalFresh within Lake County. Currently, the program is in 5 elementary schools throughout the county, and we'll hopefully be increasing that to 6 starting in early 2025. I am currently working in Mini Cannon Elementary as well as Cobb Elementary, and hopefully in like January I'll be starting at Coyote Valley Elementary. Currently our grant period is running from 2024 to 2026, and the focus setting of the work that we're doing is in schools, again specifically elementary schools, grades kindergarten all the way up through 5th grade, as well as we are able to work with the adult members of the families within those schools, so 18 all the way up to 59 years old. And the focus of the grant is focusing on nutrition education lessons. I'm going in about once a month to the different classrooms, providing a short nutrition education lesson. That's the curriculum that we're currently using is My Plate, so it's talking about the different food groups, encouraging eating all the food groups, all the different colored fruits and veggies. Supporting the school gardens when needed. I know Cobb Elementary has a great school garden program that they're able to run internally, so I haven't had to help out much with their garden. Mini Cannon, we started doing a clean out the last school year, trying to revitalize it, get ready for planting. I know the booster committee has done a lot of work on getting that up and going, and again, we're hoping to get that more of the kids involved with the garden, get them involved with that. And then another focus is with physical activity. So we recently started providing what's called CATCH, so it's coordinated approaches to child's health. And that's something that we've started at Mini Cannon, where the teachers are able to provide simple physical activity lessons to the kids. And of course, with us being a grant program, one of the requirements annually is the school sites complete what's called a site level assessment questionnaire, shortened as SLAC. And it was developed by the University of California Nutrition Policy Institute. And it basically assesses the current healthy eating and physical practices at each school site. And it's used to help better understand how the schools can raise their level of quality. It has 8 different sections. And again, it's just meant to be used as a tool, as a starting point. If they need ideas on simple ways that they can improve, like the nutrition around the school, the meal environment, physical activity, etc. So I'll do the next couple slides, just sort of go into the activities as well as the SLAC results at the 2 different schools that I'm currently with. So I talked a little bit about this, but some of the activities at Mini Cannon, monthly nutrition lessons, which will involve some sort of taste test food demo. Again, I provided a train the trainer for the CATCH curriculum. So where I went in and taught the teachers how to implement the physical activity lessons to their students. Again, assisting the school garden when needed, when requested, and then of course attending school events. So the SLAC, the results of the SLAC are looking at the previous school year. So in the first column, that was done in the 2020 grant year. So again, that was looking at the 2018 to 2019 school year, so pre-pandemic. Again, wellness policies and meal program participation includes things like whether or not there's a wellness committee. Meals and school meal environment include things around like what does the cafeteria look like? Are there posters that are encouraging healthy eating? Food and drinks around the school include things like vending machines, how maybe outside food may be priced, the number of fruits and vegetables that are offered. Gardens includes, are the school children involved in the gardens? How involved are they? How often, or I guess how many months out of the year the garden is being effectively used. Nutrition education includes items where is nutrition education being provided to the kids, what sorts of topics, physical education and physical activity, and then parent and family involvement. So for Mini Cannon, it's looking at 3 different results. The last column is showing the most recent SLAC, and for Mini Cannon, they have improved in the majority of the areas. The one area that has remained the same is the gardens, which, like I mentioned earlier, we're working on getting the gardens up and running where the kids can become more involved. With the physical activity, that decreased slightly from this most recent year, and then parent and family involvement decreased as well. But I would say overall, great progress that Minnecannon has made, and a huge testament to the work that the staff at the school have been doing. Again, this is just showing the same information just in a bar chart form. The top bar of each section, the dark green, is the most current year, and then the purple is pre-pandemic results. Again, most of the categories have increased over the years. And then moving on to Cobb. So we just have 2 different SLAC results from Cobb. We didn't have results from them pre-pandemic, so this is just looking at the past 2 years. And Cobb has stayed mainly the same across all categories, not much movement, but great scores, especially with their garden, which again, I know they do a lot of great work with their school garden. And again, just showing in bar chart form. And then lastly, just a few other things. So Cobb recently received a recognition for the LEAP Award, which stands for Leaders in Eating and Activity Practices. And this is basically recognition that's given based on the SLAC results. And they received the recognition in the garden category, just showing that they achieved 70% of the possible points for garden activities. And again, I think this just goes to show how involved the school is in their flourishing school garden. And it doesn't come with any awards or money, but it does come with like a little certificate, things that they can share in their newsletter, and little logos that they can post on their social media as well. And Minnecannon wasn't too far behind. They just, to get an award or recognized in one of the categories, they need to get at least 70% of the possible points. If they get 70% in more than one category, then that can give them either a bronze or a silver or a gold recognition. And then again, plans for the future, we'll hopefully, or planning to start activities at Coyote Valley Elementary in early 2025. And then again, I can provide nutrition education lessons to the adult members of the family as well. So we'll hopefully be able to get that up and going as well for any of the school parents who are interested in that. Any questions?
Are there any questions from the board?
How much support are you able to provide the gardens? Like any staffing, or is it mostly just providing the plants and?
Mostly it's just been providing like garden materials, at least with Minnecannon. I have been pretty hands-off with Cobb because the school staff seem to have their routine down. But I'm happy to provide, or I'm able to provide, like, there's not other staff besides me within the program. But I've gone to Minnecannon to do like garden cleanups. If the garden gets up and running, it's within our scope to like do garden lessons with the kids. Yeah, we're able to provide like soil, any garden materials. And there are different like grants for around school gardening. Yeah.
Thank you. That's, it is great to go up to Cobb and see that, the garden, and it is flourishing, and yeah. You have a good winter garden going up there, I bet. Yeah. Any other questions of the board? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we have our special acknowledgements. The board uses this time for any special acknowledgements, and we're going to start with our student number 1, Middletown High School. Carlos McKinney.
Middletown High School's number 1 student for the month of October is Bailey Smith.
Any parents can come on up and sit right up here and take, got it.
Miss Smith, our teacher, says Bailey is genuinely kind and wholesome. I love seeing how kind and caring she is toward her peers. Miss Brown, our librarian, says Bailey radiates kindness. She is always pleasant and so polite. Bailey is an asset to MHS. Miss Sandoval, our Spanish teacher, says Bailey Smith is very organized and always positive. Mr. Gunyon, our math teacher, says Bailey does ask awesome questions in personal finance. And I would like to personally say that she has such an infectious smile. Anyone that's ever encountered Bailey, always keep that smile. It is beautiful. All right, so Middletown High School has two student representatives tonight. The next student representative for the month of November, our number 1 student, is Angelo Ispara.
Dad, you can come sit right here in front.
Come sit right here.
No. You get to stand. Dad gets to sit.
Angelo is anxious.
And mom. Yeah, we can get another chair. Pull another chair.
Mr. Evans, our computer teacher, says, I have had the pleasure of teaching Angelo for the past 3 years, and in that time I have seen Angelo excel. Angelo is smart, a young man with a passion for learning. He is kind to others and befriends anyone and everyone. I enjoy having Angelo in my class, and he always brings an extra passion and entertainment to the class. Mrs. Rockwell, our commander secretary, says, Angelo is always polite, helpful, and on task. Mr. Gunyon, our math teacher, says, Angelo has an enormous passion for all he does. I appreciate everything he does. Mr. McCall, our English teacher, says Angelo has been a solid student in honors English, thoughtful, dedicated, and funny. Angelo is very bright and capable of anything he sets his mind to.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Middletown Middle School, Aaron Dorman.
Hi. Am I still on? Okay, thanks. I actually also have two to celebrate this month. It's been a long month of keeping a secret for our November #1 student. But Matthew Beck, could you come up here, please?
Go ahead and grab a second chair, too.
There you go.
Oh, man. Okay. So, this is Matthew Beck. I have a few comments from your teachers. Miss Snodgrass says that Matthew is a respectful young man. He works hard in class and works well with his peers. He turns in his assignments on time and goes out of his way to make up any work missed. He earned an A+ in science this quarter with his exceptional work ethic. Keep up the good work. Mr. Roach mentioned that Matthew is an absolute joy in class. He arrives every day prepared and ready to learn. His behavior is top of the line. With him, all a teacher has to do is put the lesson out there and he'll run with it. On several occasions when I needed some assistance, he was eager to volunteer. This young man will go down as one of my all-time favorites. From Mrs. Barker in math, Matthew is one of the most conscientious students I have ever had. He is always working to improve and learn more. He's a whiz at math, but something that has impressed me even more than that is that he's taken it upon himself to learn to speak Spanish. How many 8th graders do you know that have learned a second language in their spare time? Matthew is one of a kind. And from Mr. Hart in PE, I have enjoyed Matthew in both 7th and 8th grade and have been fortunate to have him both years. He's always challenging himself to do better and works hard to improve his skill set. Matthew is also well-liked and respected amongst his peers, making those around him better. He is committed to improving his basketball skills and made this year's school team. Matthew makes teaching easy because he's eager to learn. Rather than just looking for the easy road, he challenges himself to succeed and has fun doing it. Nice job.
Keep that right hand free.
All right, and Middletown Middle School's December #1 student is Serenity O'Brien. Would you please join me? All right. So, we also have some comments from your teachers. They're all wonderful. Mrs. Davis in science says Serenity is an outstanding student. She's always on task and engaged in science conversations with her table group and her classmates. Serenity is a model student participating in all activities to her full potential. This honor is well-deserved and earned. Mrs. Allman says Serenity is extremely intelligent and kind. She goes out of her way to help others. Whether it's a classmate struggling with a difficult concept or a friend in need of support, Serenity goes out of her way to lend a hand. She's interested in deep topics and asks complicated questions. She greatly deserves this honor. Mrs. Clark from math class says Serenity is a standout student. She takes her academics seriously and finds a way to have fun while learning. She shows up every day with a smile and jumps right into the daily warm-up or riddle. She participates in all the class discussions, takes charge of her tasks, and often joins in on the whole school activities such as Spirit Week and rally games. She is creative and adds her unique self to all she does. All of this while also playing for our Broncos basketball team. Mrs. Jessen from Language Arts says Serenity is one of those students who can and does do it all. She's an academic, acing her classes with great discussion insights, powerful writing, and high test scores. She's an artist, always drawing and doodling, performing on stage, and seeing artistic expression as part of her existence. And she's an athlete, proudly playing part of the girls' basketball team at MMS. She is the kind of student who raises the bar for everyone else and reminds us of all we can be. And Mrs. Welton says Serenity has made amazing progress in PE this year. She went from passing one standard to excelling in all four. She has great sportsmanship and she sets high standards for herself. She is kind to her fellow students and always willing to help when needed. Serenity has definitely earned this recognition. Good job.
This is going to sound really random, but I like that our students give firm handshakes too.
Yeah, they do.
You know how to give a handshake.
Okay, next we have Scott Ferguson, Coyote Valley.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So for Coyote's #1 student, coming from the Legion of Honor in Miss Pizer's class, is that what you call it? It's a culture of superhero-dom. I would like to bring up, please, Madison Richter. Come on up, Madison. Okay, so this comes from the wisdom angel, the winsome angel. But you impart wisdom. All right, the winsome angel. It's in cursive, so I'm sorry. It's been a long time since 3rd grade. From Miss Pizer's 5th grade class. And I'm going to read some nice words that she has jotted down for you. All right, so December's Student of the Month from Coyote Valley is a superhero from Miss Pizer's 5th grade class. It's my pleasure to introduce Marvelous Maddie. In class, Maddie is continually working on honing her many superpowers at training headquarters. It's hard work, but she is a dedicated superhero trainee that is advancing through her training very quickly. One of Maddie's superheroes is her genuine happiness. She always seems to be smiling, giggling, and just all around a really happy person. Her sidekicks, energetic Emmy and awesome Aston, are always having fun sharing the next exciting adventure with her. It might be having fun with friends on the playground, helping others, meeting new people, or completing assignments. But she always seems to be enjoying life. It's a good secret to have already. Other marvelous powers she possesses would be her persistence and hard work on her studies to be the best student she can be. Maddie is always giving 110% in everything she does in school and out, and is a straight A student. Marvelous Maddie is an independent worker as well as an awesome leader. She works hard at bettering herself by participating in other activities like leadership, valet, extra 2nd grade reading buddies, and even after-school workshops. Sports are probably her favorite pastime, and she loves soccer, softball, but most of all, basketball. Marvelous Maddie always shows kindness, responsibility, and respect with all situations. She is well liked by her peers and has always been a great role model. Iron Man once said, "I think that we all do heroic things, but hero is not a noun, it's a verb." Marvelous Maddie is definitely a doer and a true superhero. One might even say she is Wonder Woman.
Okay, next is Cobb Mountain Elementary, Angie Stevenson.
Cobb Mountain is very excited and proud to present this award to Eden Clark. This is written by Eden's 5th grade teacher, Miss Laurel Phillips. Eden demonstrates a strong work ethic that shows in all of his assignments and in his classroom participation. Eden always puts in his best effort. He consistently turns his work in on time, showing that he works productively during class time. He shows determination toward new concepts and is truly inspiring to both his classmates and his teacher. His dedication to hard work makes him a role model for every student at Cobb School. In addition to Eden's great work ethic, he is also respectful and kind to others. He has many friends at Cobb School and treats his peers as he wants to be treated. Eden is enthusiastic about sports. He is often seen dominating the playground with his mad athletic skills. Even though Eden is an excellent athlete, he does not put others down. He encourages others and lifts them up. He is seen as a team player within the Cobb School community, playing with all students and always with a smile on his face. One of the coolest things about Eden is that he loves flying. His enthusiasm for learning shines through, especially when discussing his passion for flying airplanes and his dream of becoming a pilot. He is part of the Young Eagles flight program at Sonoma County Sky Park, where he gets the opportunity to fly with volunteer pilots that teach kids how to fly. He eagerly talks about flight simulation games and different types of airplanes that he wants to fly one day. He is currently researching the A-4 Skyhawk for a class project, a plane that a family member flew in the Vietnam War. Eden's excitement about aviation not only shows his curiosity, but it also encourages his classmates to get excited about their passions too. We are so proud to celebrate Eden for his hard work, for his kindness, and his passion. Congratulations.
Hello, Mrs. Fisher couldn't be here tonight, so I got the wonderful task of filling in for her. That's fine. Paybacks. So, Mini Cannon's #1 student is Oceano Ransford. Oceano is an excellent student who enjoys school and learning. He earned principal's list for the first trimester of 4th grade, something to be very proud of, since this is the first time he has received letter grades. I'm sure his name will continue to appear on the principal's list in the future as well. He is well liked in class and is very helpful to his classmates. I always enjoy hearing what he has to contribute in class discussions. Oceano is very diverse. Oceano has very diverse interests and clearly enjoys researching things that interest him. He has a very sophisticated vocabulary and extensive knowledge of many topics. He enjoys sharing interesting facts with his class, especially during science lessons. Other students enjoy working with him during group work because he is so knowledgeable and helpful. Oceano is a very responsible and respectful student with a strong sense of right and wrong. He will stand up for himself and others and treats his classmates and teacher with respect. I have seen him problem-solve situations both in class and on the playground. I am happy to have Oceano in my class this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing him succeed as he makes his way through the Middletown schools. He has a very bright future ahead of him. Congratulations, Mrs. Parker.
Well, thank you for that. That was great. Best part of the board meeting. At this time, the students that and parents that would like to go ahead and go on home, they can. And next we have community comments. Those in the audience, do we have one? Okay. Those in the audience desiring to address the board regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board and make a brief statement, express his or her viewpoint, or ask a question regarding matters related to the school system. Please understand that the board does not take action on non-agendized items. Board Policy 9323. So we have Emily Casimir, and she's going to be speaking on the elimination plan.
Good evening. My name is Emily Kasmeyer. I am the campus supervisor at Coyote Valley. When I was initially interviewed for the role as campus supervisor, I asked the interview panel, what would it take for the role of campus supervisor to be cut? The response I was met with was declining enrollment. I do not believe we are currently experiencing declining enrollment. Currently, the high school has 418 enrolled students with a principal and an assistant principal. Coyote Valley has 432 students, our largest school in the district, with a principal and no other admin support. As extreme behaviors in and outside the classrooms increase, I struggle to see how the elimination of the role as supervisor, I lost my place, excuse me. Elimination outside of the classrooms increase. I struggle to see how the elimination of the role that supervises, supports, communicates home, and logs in Aries is a smart decision. It feels as though a qualified budget is taking precedence over the safety of MUSD students. If a student is unable to be in class, I am the first line of support to help them get them back to class or support them till they can be picked up for the day. I am the person who logs at least 80% of our behavioral incidents in Aries. I make phone calls home to keep families up to date on situations. I offer social emotional services to our students as intervention. I facilitate and supervise kids who are serving in-school suspension. I do positive alternatives to in-school suspension, doing restorative projects, helping students be informed on how their choices impact others, in hopes the behaviors will not happen again. I have had great success with this. I supervise our bus lines daily and handle all of our bus consequences and citations. We have about 100 to 150 bus riders every day. Most days our buses pick up after our teachers' contract time ends. If my position is cut, we will have teachers working outside of their contract every single day. My work as campus supervisor has been well received. The middle school and Mini Cannon now have campus supervisors. Our schools need this type of support of campus supervisors are providing to our MUSD students. Please rethink the proposed elimination plan. Thank you.
Thank you. On to the consent calendar. So the consent calendar, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be a routine or sufficiently supported by prior or accompanying reference and materials and information as to not require additional discussion. A motion as referenced below will enact all items. And we have approval of minutes, payroll report, purchase order report, warrants, donations. Thank you letters from Redbud and thank you letters from, oh, that's the donations, and contracts and field trips. At this time, if there's something that needs to be pulled for discussion, we could do that or pulled for further discussion. We can do it at this time. Does anybody have any items that they would like to have pulled? Allison, have you thought about reading the thank you letters?
Oh, I have a synopsis for each one if you would like me to read it.
Oh, I would love that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Once again, donations are very important for supporting our students, both academically, socially, and athletically. So the FFA judging teams wish to thank the following for their generous donations to be used for FFA judging team expenses. And this goes to the Middletown Unified Ag Boosters. The MHS basketball team wishes to thank Denise McDowell for her donation to their team in support of our student athletes. MHS wrestling team sends its deepest appreciation to Sue Hunt for her donation to the team in memory of Jeff Hunt. Middletown FFA thanks the Middletown Unified Ag Boosters for another generous donation which supports team building activities and the further development of communication skills. Middletown FFA thanks the Lake County Wine Alliance for their greatly appreciated donation. The Middletown High School men's basketball team sends their thanks and appreciation to 707 Premier Sports LLC for their donation which supports our student athletes as well. Minnie Cannon Elementary would like to thank Redwood Healthcare District for their donation, which goes towards the purchase of materials to enhance the attainment of their students' educational goals. And Middletown Unified School District wishes to send Redwood Credit Union our deepest gratitude for their donation of gift cards to students who are affected by the Boyles Fire. We are very grateful the students can use these to replace the items lost during the fire. So once again, thank you to all of you who have donated to help and ensure that all of our students get what they need.
That was really a special time to be able to take that time to do that during the voting of the consent calendar, because otherwise it's all kind of pulled together. So I like that we separately do that during our discussion. Is there any other items that you would like to have pulled for further discussion on the consent calendar?
I just had a request. I'm wondering if in the minutes, in the reports to the board, if going forward we can just have a high-level subject of what each report to the board included. Like, for example, in the minutes, the MTA report, it just says report from MTA. But I remember that there was quite a lot said by the MTA, was it MTA? Yeah, it was MTA, about custodial services and the issues that they're having on the campus. So it would be helpful to me as a board member to be able to refer back to the minutes to see what, at a high level, what was mentioned in the reports. It's just something I wanted to ask the board if you all thought that might be useful as well. Because I noticed we do it for some, but not all, so.
Yeah, I would say just for records, you know, that a little bit more clarity. Note that a topic was brought up.
You know, that's kind of an interesting idea because of the fact that sometimes if you want to look back 5 or 10 years from now, you might look at the minutes to go, oh, wait a minute, you know, maybe it's in the minutes. And if it's written, then it happened.
Is this part of consent?
This is part of the consent calendar. We're deciding what to pull. We're just deciding if we're going to pull this for further discussion.
Okay, I got it. I got you.
Yep. The other thing I was thinking too with pulling the approval of minutes from the consent calendar, especially tonight, is because we do have 2 board members that weren't part of the board during last month's meeting. I didn't know, you know, you can either abstain from the vote, but that means you're abstaining from the whole consent calendar, or we could pull it, and then we could re-vote on the.
So we're already having discussion on it. My recommendation would be to go ahead and pull it, have the consent vote, and then talk about the minutes.
Okay, and so with that, Jeff, do we have to vote on pulling it first? Nope. Okay.
I could just move to approve the consent calendar minus item
A.
A.
And then we can discuss item A.
Okay. It's been moved to and seconded to approve the consent calendar, pulling item A, approval of minutes, and seconded by Chris. All in favor of the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Okay, passed 5-0. Okay, next, approval of the minutes from the consent calendar. Is there any further discussion that we would like to have about the minutes? So it's been asked by one of our board members to have more detail in the minutes.
Just for the reports to the board, when they're looking at last month's minutes, if you look at them, it just says MTA and the person who made the report. Okay. And that's not useful information a year from now. So if we, you know, we could ask people who make reports to the board if they could submit to Janelle, you know, the high level bullet points, and that way she could just copy and paste it into the minutes. It wouldn't be a lot much more work for her. Or just note the topics that were brought up at a very high level. I mean, I don't want to create more work.
Right, is kind of my thought. I don't know what Janelle's transcription ability, shorthand is not a thing that we learn anymore.
Well,
and
looking
so-
at the detail that's included in other parts of the minutes, I think
Right.
it's quite within her capabilities to list the very high level.
Well, but what I was going to say though is if we ask our representatives to show up, I'm seeing one of our representatives nodding already, that she'd be up for that. And it would just be helpful
Yeah.
to have that. Because I know that like a lot of the things, and I don't know which items you're looking at, I know that for me, when I give a presentation, there's often a PowerPoint that goes with it. And so that kind of provides those notes. But if we can talk to those who are regularly doing those types of presentations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm particularly interested in having a record of what our employee groups have to say when they come up to make a report to the board.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a record of that.
And they usually have notes anyway, so.
Yeah, so
Cool.
thank you.
Yeah, just on that same topic, real quick, like was brought up the negotiation dates, the 13th and the 11th. You could always go back real quick to the minutes and be like, oh, when were those dates?
Yeah.
But then if you need more detail, you can go back to the video or whatever.
Okay, so we've had a motion on the floor, I believe, right, for approval of the minutes?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, we haven't had a motion yet.
No.
So, okay, let's go back to that, and let's get approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
Moved by Chris, seconded. I second. By Allison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
Any opposed?
any abstain?
I
Abstain?
I abstain. Wasn't on the board to approve them, so.
Okay, so we have, Patsy, did you vote yes?
I did, yes.
Okay, so we have, is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so we have 4 yes and 1 abstention, and all in favor, or,
They've already done that.
yeah.
We're good. Next item.
Passed, next item. Thank you. That's why I have to sit so close to him. Okay, board policy process. Board will discuss the process.
No, wait.
I think it's first.
I'm
We have a
sorry.
whole section 8,
First
interim.
First interim. Number
8A.
Oh, that's why I don't like it back to back. Thank you. Okay, business and facilities, 8A, first interim report.
I hear the
Our
wizard.
CBO Tanya
Mr.
is going to
Wizard.
be doing first interim report.
Connecting unit. The wizard will see you now. Anybody have a joke they'd like to share?
Oh, if Larry was here.
Ta-da.
Okay, first intro. So, make sure I got, there we go. Okay, so the great news is that we have a positive budget certification.
The not so great news is that we are depleting the fund balance by year ending 26, 27. Many think that a 3-year projection is an unrealistic look at the budget. However, the ongoing trend of deficit spending
Tanya, make sure to talk into the mic.
will finally take its toll. Will finally take its toll at the end of 3 years. We will see a picture of that trend in the multi-year section in just a bit. So our enrollment does decline. It continues to decline. Yes, there was an increase last year. However, that was not sustained. Currently, our enrollment is at 1,453. Last year, it was at 1,476. The year before that, at 1,449. So we did not maintain the higher enrollment that we had last year. Our ADA has had a slight increase. This is important to make sure. Our ADA is not yet up to pre-COVID rates. Currently, we are estimating the ADA at 92%. The goal is to get back to the pre-COVID rates of 94.5.
ADA is attendance, daily attendance.
Yes, it's what we're actually funded for. So if you have one person enrolled and that a person comes to school every single day, we get 100%. If they miss days, it's a percentage of. So right now we're at 92, at approximately 92%. So on our unrestricted revenues, you can see here in this picture, the LCFF revenue was reduced based on actual and revised enrollment counts, which resulted in adjustment to the ADA in the projected budget as well. So there was a reduction because at budget adoption, we were a little bit overstated to what actually materialized for this year. In the federal revenues, we do not receive any unrestricted federal revenues, so there's no items there. In the state revenues, we have an increase there of 101. This was a one-time adjustment for the unrestricted lottery funds. There were 2 prior year entries that were done. One of them was from the state for 22-23 lottery allocation that was based on revenues that came in higher at the state level. And then the other is recognition of the prior year revenues being posted in the current year. Local revenues have a slight decrease. This is mostly due to the transfer of what we call the STRS clearing account. So this is an account when we have variances on the STRS reporting, that money comes back to us through the STRS clearing account. We should not be recognizing revenue in that account because it is a clearing account. Therefore, the revenue that was budgeted for that was cleared out in this year. We had a very small addition. We had a very small increase to the special education transportation funds. It was less than $500. So those are the two, two items in there. In our unrestricted expenditures, so we have adjustments to our certificated salaries and classified salaries due to revisions in the position control, and corresponding changes to the benefits are the result of those positional changes. In the revisions to materials and supplies and operating expenditures and capital outlay are based on the revisions to the actuals that have occurred to this date and the revisions of revenues and beginning balances that have been posted. The other outgo remains the same. Those are payments that we have to make, like to the county office for services that they provide for us. In indirect costs, those are increased due to taking the maximum allowable indirect costs from all categorical programs that we are allowed to. Here we have the next section on the unrestricted side of the budget. We have a transfer in. So on this transfer in, this was clearing a balance in Fund 17. Fund 17 should not have funds in it without a board designation. The last designation that was done for this was back in 17-18. It was for the purchase of a bus. There was a small balance that got left in there since 18, and it's just been building interest on top of interest. So we have cleared that out because we do not have a board designation for any funds to be in Fund 17. Our contributions. Here's a hard one to take. Our contributions have increased due to non-public school placements that we have had to make. This year, it's quite significant right now. We hope at the end of the year to recover some of that from the SELPA, but that's a year-end process, so at this point, we are recognizing that in its entirety.
Can you explain in detail what a non-public school placement is?
Non-public school placement is a placement for a student that we are not able to provide services for that student, so we have to go to an outside agency to provide the support and services that that student needs.
And what would be a reason why we wouldn't be able to provide services? It's just not in our budget, or we don't have the...
We cannot support their physical disability, their social, emotional, I mean, it's directed towards special education students. That's the only reason that we would have a non-public school placement.
So we've surpassed our budgeted amount by $500,000 in that,
Yes, we have.
in that specific category.
Yes, we have.
We had a contract last month that was almost $500,000 for one placement.
This is one placement.
One placement. And yes, and this will be ongoing for, this is a young student, so it will be an ongoing cost for an extended period of time.
This is an in-district student?
Yes, it is.
Is there any support from the state on that? Any contributions that the state offers based on a level of contributions we have to make?
Well, what we do get is at the end of the year, we can submit to the SELPA for what they call extraordinary costs to the SELPA pool, and there's money in there that, depending on how many other districts and a bunch of different criteria, you submit that information, and sometimes the majority of the time you'll get reimbursement for some, typically not all, but for some portion of that. So the extraordinary costs that we submitted last year at year end, we still have not heard back yet on that pool. So we're still waiting to find out.
And then in terms of contributions, is that just specific to how much we're paying for the facility that our students are going to, or does that include the transportation and all the other costs that are associated? Because the nearest non-public school to us is like Santa Rosa, St. Helena, so we got pretty long routes.
Yeah, we have a student that we transport to Fremont. We have students that we transport over the hill to St. Helena, I believe. We have students that go in Santa Rosa, and then we have one that's placed in Southern California.
Have we looked into what it would take to serve those students here locally? I mean, if we're talking about $500,000, can we not figure out how to do that in-house?
Well, in-house, no. We can't even get staff hired for the special education. It's very difficult to get the special education staff to meet the needs that we have for the students here. At one time, a couple of years ago, Kelseyville Unified was the one who we sent a lot of our special ed students to. They have disbanded that program, and they are no longer doing that. So hence we have, as well as any other district, within the county, are having the same kind of issues.
Okay.
Do you know, just not to go off on anything, do you know if how many other schools in our county are going to non-public schools where maybe one of them may be worth putting some kind of satellite facility in our area?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally separate.
That would be a SELPA type of discussion, and I do not typically attend those meetings. So yeah. Okay. Transfers out. The transfers out are a transfer out that we have to make to Fund 40, and that is to pay our QZAB, it's called QZAB debt, which is Qualified Zone Academy Bond. I believe it's a private loan, basically, and that is for our solar array debt payment. So the good news on that is that we only have this payment on the books until 2030, so only in a few more years, and then that payment will be gone. But currently we're having to make that transfer to Fund 40 from the general fund to support that debt. Here is our unrestricted fund balance, and you can see that the change in the fund balance is the revenues less the expenditures and transfers, which creates a negative impact to the fund balance. So you can see here at the June budget adoption, we were looking at $495,831 as a negative impact to the fund balance, and that has increased to $1.3 million. And again, that's based on all of the changes in revising the budget to be where it really should be. Our beginning fund balance, you can see at June adoption, it was 4.7. Our at first interim, it has increased to just over 6 million. But again, even though we increased our beginning fund balance, what we carried over from the prior year, we also increased the deficit or the change in fund balance. The net effect being that we have an increase to our fund balance of $475,000. So of our 4.7 million that remains in our ending fund balance that we're projecting right now, we have $5,000 that we set aside for the revolving account. We have 1.4 million, almost 1.5, set aside in assigned balances. And then our reserve for economic uncertainty is at 3%, and it's $812,000.
Can you talk a little bit about what specifically the funds that are in the assigned?
I'm just getting there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the assigned balances are the supplemental. What technically you would say supplemental and concentration. We do not get concentration dollars, so I just refer to it as supplemental. So we have $1,186,000 in assigned balance in the supplemental funds. In the MA, which is the Medi-Cal administrative account, we have $207,000. In the mandated costs, we have $63,000, and in our insurance claims, we have just over $34,000. So what that means is those assigned balances is that we had revenue that came in last year, and we had expenditures that we spent. We had money left over. That's what we have to designate as assigned balance. In your supplemental funds, just because you had money left over doesn't unrestrict that money. You still have to do the supplemental services and improve services with those funds. So they don't just get to roll over into the general fund.
Tanya?
Yes.
The concentration you said we don't get, what is that?
Because we don't have a high enough unduplicated pupil count to meet that criteria.
Do we know what that is, that percentage?
It is, I believe it's 55%. We're at 54.
Oh.
So when you say unduplicated, can you clarify exactly what group of students we're talking about?
So the unduplicated is based on, so we have a couple of different ways that it happens. The unduplicated, we get what are called direct certified roll, meaning that we have students who are on some type of a social services program, and that file is directly loaded into the system. So we don't need to get an application for them. So they could be in social services, they could be identified as a foster youth. That automatically makes them eligible for in the unduplicated count. We have the other portion of it is that we have meal applications that even though everybody eats and there's no charge. The meal application is an important document because what that does is it makes us eligible for different types of funding. One of those being the concentration. Another portion of that is it increases our Title I or any other federal programs that we have. So there's lots of different reasons why we need to really focus on getting that those applications completed, because that's what makes it for us. So we have where they're eligible for free and reduced. If they're identified as homeless, the foster youth, English learners, they are also fall into that category. So right now, based on our enrollment of 1,453, we are at 54%. So
How often is that measured? Is
once a year.
October 2nd, is that your date?
CBED's date, yep. So it's once a year. So that's our number for the whole year, and that's what some of our other funding and sources are based on, is that number.
Wow, we're at 54%.
Make sure you turn in your free and reduced lunch applications.
Make sure, yeah.
Yes.
If you're listening.
So I was looking
next year.
at, I don't live within the district's boundaries, so I got a little flyer at my house, and that district, they're at 80%.
Yeah.
Are they a
I'm in
neighboring
district like
district?
They're in the county.
Right.
Yep.
They're not a neighboring district, no.
Okay.
They do not touch our border, no.
Okay.
One of the things that we did this year with our start of the school year, as students were coming in to get their schedules and buy yearbooks and PE clothes and all those things, is that there was a station for families to complete free and reduced lunch applications. We had Chromebooks set up, Luann was there, and so we were supporting, trying to get every student to have an application completed.
Yeah, because 54% is the highest I've ever heard it be.
We've been higher.
We
We've
have
high-
been?
Yes, we have. The other thing is that a lot of times you have families that do not want to fill out the forms
Right.
because they think that we're going to turn it into the IRS or turn it into immigration or we don't do any of that. That document stays here in this district. We don't give it to anybody. Just because we use that for our account doesn't mean we send those documents to anybody. So it's an education piece that we need to do as well, to make sure that these parents understand we're not doing anything with this data other than providing funding and a base funding for our students, for our kids. So big educational piece that we need to work on.
I think, just real quick to explain, I think Middletown kind of is, the California funding formula seems to work for a lot of districts, but the problem for our district, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, our people make too much money and our homes cost too little. So property
Yes.
taxes are minimal, but we also we're not a disadvantaged community based on salary, right? So kind of those two things are really kind of key in the California funding formula, right?
We are literally in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. Now, and you can even take that back even further. When I was here years ago, the first time, we actually used to qualify for REAP funding, which is rural schools. I don't remember all of the acronym, but it was federal funding that identified areas based on this federal map. And we used to actually get that funding. And then the next year, we lost that funding. And I was like, no. So I called all over Washington, everybody and stuff. Well, they updated the maps, and our map, we became too wealthy on this map for the REAP funding, but yet we are not a wealthy community.
No. Yeah,
So
exactly.
we're right
Just
in the
falling
middle.
on the wrong side of the funding formula, really.
Yeah. So, anyways, the MA funding is our Medi-Cal administrative funds. So, and again, that program, you have to spend those funds back into that program. So it's not like we can just do whatever we want with it. Mandated costs, we have a little bit more leeway there, but again, there are things that just because we get the mandate block grant doesn't alleviate us from the responsibility of the state's requirement for us to take care of specific things. We have to use those funds to make sure that we maintain that. The insurance claims, again, that one is for when, I don't know, one of our vehicles gets in an accident, when a car's been vandalized, one of our vehicles have been vandalized, we have to file an insurance claim, and then we have to pay for to get the bus, the car, the vehicle, the equipment, whatever it is, replaced. So that's what those funds are. And we are working right now on reconciling that fund, or that resource of money, to make sure that we don't have anything in there, because if there is anything left over in there, we can transfer that part of it to the general fund. But so those are our assigned balances. Okay. On restricted revenues. So the restricted revenues, we have a very small change in our LCFF funding. This is the property tax transfer. Again, this was just updated property tax numbers, so minimal amount. In our federal revenues, there were quite a bit of changes on the restricted side of the budget, because we had we just had a lot of changes there. So on the federal side, we had current year awards and prior year carryover and deferred revenue changes that impacted, as an example, Title I, Special Ed Basic, a bunch of different, several different special ed programs, the teacher quality, Title IV, Title III programs. Some of these programs, we recognize the deferred revenue, and the programs are ending. An example would be the ARP funding that we received, the American Rescue Plan, which was identified specifically for homeless youth. We did not recognize that when we set up the budget, but yet we had a carryover of almost $8,000, and we had to expend those funds by September 30th. So that has been done. And we had several programs that were like that just never they were not set up in the budget properly at the beginning of the year. Then we have state revenues. So the state revenues, again, it's pretty much the same picture. We had the ELOP, which is the Extended Learning Opportunities Program. The current year award was revised downward because of the revision to the enrollment and the ADA projection. But we had UPK that had, UPK, Universal Pre-K, that we updated to reflect the deferred revenue that we carried over from the prior year that was not recognized. And the same thing as with the unrestricted lottery. In the restricted lottery, we had 2 prior year entries, one for the 22-23, which was based on higher revenues, which, by the way, I've not ever seen that happen before, where they come back a couple of years later and make an adjustment. Usually it's only 1 year back. And then we recognized the fourth quarter of the prior year in the current year. So those were the comprehensive changes there. In the, let's see, we also had CTIG, Prop 28, Ag Incentive, the Secondary Specialized Program. Again, those current year awards were revised, and then the deferred revenue was recognized. Then local revenues, here is, we had the K-12 strong workforce was not budgeted, so we added that to the budget. And that reflects the current year award. The special education was revised to reflect the current year award. And then within that, we have all of the local donation accounts, meaning that what we call the 9,000 accounts. So as an example, Mini Cannon has their own specific donation account. Cobb, each one of the schools has their own donation account. And those were updated to reflect their carryover balances and any local revenues that they've received to date. Whoops. Oh yeah, restricted expenditures. Again, this is going to follow along the same lines. There was adjustments made to position control in the certificated and the classified, and then the corresponding changes to benefits based on those positions. One of the things that we did do is that we moved some para-educators from the unrestricted side of the budget into the Title I budget based on the 3 elementary school school-wide site plans that they have. So that helped to alleviate a little bit from the unrestricted side of the budget and put it into the restricted side of the budget. The revisions to materials and supplies, operating expenditures, again, are based on what the changes to the revenues and the carryover balances and beginning balances. Some of those funds that are in there are one-time funds and they have to be expended. We have programs that are ending at the end of this fiscal year and in the next year, September 30th, and in the next fiscal year ending. So we don't have revenue coming in, we've already gotten the money, but yet we have to spend what we've received.
Can I ask a couple questions about that? Because that's a lot of money and a big difference. And I'm just wondering, how do you go about figuring out how to spend those dollars down in a way that could possibly stretch out general fund dollars without supplanting?
I mean, that is a big challenge that we are working on. I mean, the philosophy for a person who sits in my seat should always be, you always spend your most restrictive dollars first. That has not always been the case here for the past few years. So we are trying to right that ship and looking at spending the restricted dollar before we go to the unrestricted dollar.
So when we're looking at such, like, if you look at operating expenses, how the budget was $2 million, and at first interim, I'm seeing $3.32 million. So talk me through that a little bit.
That is a huge chunk of the budget, meaning that beginning balances and deferred revenues and carryover balances were not evaluated when the budget was built initially for this year. So when all of the beginning balances and deferred revenue were posted, we'll just say as an example, we have a program and we brought forward in beginning balances and deferred revenue, maybe we brought forward $500,000. None of that was budgeted. So now we have to say, okay, well, we're going to estimate that budget of $500,000 that we recognized in the revenue, that amount of money has to be budgeted in either materials and supplies or operating services, somewhere. So you have increases in your materials and supplies and your operating expenditures for those. So a lot of that was stuff that was not budgeted, that should have been budgeted at budget adoption.
Jennifer, if you have a question, you need to come up to the mic.
My question is, because I heard a couple of grant names. When you say money brought forward, is books and supplies and operating, could those be expenses related to grants that were never put in? Is that?
They are related to grants that were never put in, yes.
Okay.
So can we be real clear
Wait.
on what we're talking about?
Just 1 second. So Jennifer, if you have a question, you have to direct it to us.
Oh, okay.
And so with that being said, your question again was?
I wanted to clarify that the increase to books and supplies and services and operating expenditures was because prior personnel you may have put in the revenue side of a grant, but didn't put in the fact that we were going to spend the money from the grant. So
Okay.
I'm asking if I were to receive a $1.2 million grant, which maybe I did.
Just suppose.
Now there needs to be $1.2 million in expenses. So the positive was previously listed, but not the expense, is what I might be hearing.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And so the answer to that question is?
That, yes, that is part of it. So yes, there were a lot of, so there was revenues that were left over last year in addition to revenues for the current year that were not recognized and were not in the budget. Okay? Most of your restricted side budget of these programs, most of that is going to be going into the 4s and the 5s, which are your materials and your supplies and your operating expenditures. That's what the majority of those are going to be. Okay? I mean, I have all of the extensive detail on all of that because when I go through and rebuilt the budget for first interim, I did it resource by resource by resource. I didn't just like group a bunch of stuff together. It was balanced resource by resource. So, and some of them I had to make an educated guess as to what they would be spending it on, looking at maybe historical. Okay, well, there's no salaries in here, so I have to adjust all of this and I got to put it in 4s and 5s. You know, they, in the past 3 years, they've spent 40% in materials and supplies and they spent the other 60% in operating expenditures. So that's how I would set up the budget. So once this is over, I have on my calendar, I'm going to be meeting with Jennifer's department, with the ag department, with special ed, all of the different departments and say, okay, here's where you're at. Here's the money that you need to spend. Here's the ones that are critical that you need to spend by June 30th. Here's the ones that you need to spend by September 30th of next year. And here's the ones that you need to spend by year end next year. And then the following year, some of those programs are going away, you know? So you're going to see a spike in the expenditures there, and then those programs go away. So there's no more. And your materials and your supplies and your operating expenditures, whatever was budgeted in there, as again, like I said, resource by resource, if it was there for this year and the money expires in September 30th, the following year, I put that as 100% expend, because if we don't spend it by September 30th, it's gone. We have to give it back.
Yeah.
I'd rather spend it. Find a way that we can spend it. So, and typically on these restricted programs, if the staff know that they have that money, they have no problem spending that money. I mean, it's just that they need to know. And to be fair to them, they haven't been given that information here recently. So we're working on righting that ship as well. So, okay. All right. So again here, you see the opposite side of the contributions. On the unrestricted side, it's a negative because it's money going out. Here on the restricted side of the budget, it's money coming in. So it's that same number that's going to haunt us for a while. Here again, this is showing the difference between what we had at June adoption in our restricted fund balance and what we actually ended up with here at first interim, meaning that we still have more money that we'll be spending down, so on different programs. But the restricted side of the budget doesn't help us in taking care of the deficit. So as much as we can, we'll be spending that restricted dollar. Okay. Now the fun part. This, I'm not going to go through this. This is just combined. It's showing you the all of the different categories and a combined total. And so it's pretty self-explanatory for all of the information that we just went through. Oh, wow. That is really hard to see. Okay. So the multi-year projection, and I believe you guys all have a copy of this, so that will help some. This is where we can see the deficit spending and the depletion of the fund balance by the end of the projection period. So there are actually 3 different lines that we want to look at to see what that show you the impact of the deficit spending. One of them is that you look at the revenue less expenditures line. And then the second one is looking at the change in fund balance. And that last one is looking at the ending fund balance unassigned. You can see here, as we go in, these are combined, restricted, unrestricted, separate columns. So you can see that in the combined, it goes from 2.4, which is part of the assigned balance, down to the next year in the multi-year projection, down to 801,000. Then you go to that third year, we only have $364,000 left, and that's part of the assigned balance. So you can see the trend in those numbers. That's showing you what we're doing in the deficit spending. So, so in the multi-year projection, again, as I was just stating, I'm going resource by resource, and I'm taking out any deferred revenues, because deferred revenues meaning that we should spend those monies this year. I'm taking out anything that is a beginning balance, and bringing forward only the current year revenue, making the assumption that what money we have today in those programs is going to be spent in those programs today. As we move forward, if the revenue goes away, the expenditure goes away. Okay? If the expenditure doesn't go away, which we have that case, we have a categorical program that is ending next year, and we had $522,000 worth of salaries in that categorical program. So we had to move in the next year, we moved those $522,000 of salaries over into the unrestricted side of the budget. So the unrestricted side takes a hit for those salaries because that categorical program is ending. In the multi-year projection, for next year, we have also built in one certificated position reduction and 5 classified positions that will be reduced, in addition to the only known retirement at this date.
So you said the only known retirement at this date. If there are additional retirements, that would create a situation where things may change.
Correct. So if we have, well, and again, it depends on the funding source, right? So if you have a person who's going to retire and they're 100% funded on the restricted side of the budget, that helps the restricted side of the budget, but it doesn't help our deficit on the unrestricted side. So, but yes, any retirement that happens, regardless of what side of the budget it's on, will help the position of the district. Okay? So, but right now we only know of one. So that's all that was recognized. Now, by the time we get to second interim, that may change. Maybe there's, I don't know, 4 or 5, who knows? I mean, so those would be factored in at that time. Okay, but there's only one known right now. In the multi-year, there is no increase to the STRS rate. It stays flat at 19.1%. The PERS rate does have a slight increase. It goes from this year at 27.05 to 27.4, then 27.5. So very small, very slight increases. There are no planned changes to the health and welfare caps in this projection. Our situation is not dire. However, we need to continue with the deficit elimination plan to get ourselves into a better financial position. We are not the only district that's facing this situation. It's happening all over the state. So it's happening all over in the county. I mean, it's happening everywhere. So if we were only basic aid, but we're not. So that's pretty much it on the multi-year projection. Then I just wanted to bring forward a small summary on Fund 21. So we brought over a beginning balance of $20 million.
Fund 21, which is?
The building fund, sorry, the building fund.
Raised playground.
This is raised money. This is raised money. Okay, so we brought forward a beginning balance of 20 million. We estimate approximately $600,000 in interest. Let's hope we get there. We have $18 million in projects that are budgeted right now, and then we have 2.7 that are that we still have to spend. That will be additional projects that, you know, as Ray indicated, some of the projects were put on hold and so forth. So we'll be bringing a more detailed report on the status of Fund 21. I don't know if it'll be next month or with the, I think March is when we bring the audit report for the bond fund. So either next month or the following month. So we'll be bringing forward a more detailed report on Fund 21. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Oh, yes.
Yes. We're going to go back and forth.
Take turns.
Question on the unrestricted expenditures. That was at 1.2 increase in the 4,000s and 5,000s for, you know, the first interim. The projection for next year shows that it's 1.1 million less. So that 1.2 and increased expenditures, was that like a lot of like large purchases, like maybe a bus or major improvements, and then it drops because it's not going to, it's like a.
When I look through that today, there is not any one of them that is like a really big. So there's like 200,000 here, 150 here, you know, 90,000 here. So they're just a bunch of small things that just were not in the budget. Put them in the budget where they're supposed to be, and so again, going resource by resource, and then in that multi-year, taking out those funds when the revenue is depleted.
How much do you see the projection adjusting? Because it seems like the first thing to do is be like, well, we're up 1.2 on supplies and expenditures. First thing we should hit, but if you look at next year, it's not the same. So I guess you can't really tell that.
Well, the only way that you can really, I mean, to really see that is looking at the budget resource by resource. Okay, well, here's this resource, and here's where, oh, look, in the budget, there was nothing, and we had to add this, but then next year, the following year, there's no more money coming in. So now we have to remove it. You know, so again, it's looking at them on a resource by resource basis, you know. And then the other big one that is the ELOP that, you know, we haven't, I cannot remember right off the top of my head, but I'm going to say it's over $1 million that we have not, gosh, how do I say?
You want me to?
We have not budgeted properly, and
We've not been using the funds to their full extent.
thank you.
And so that's part of what was going to be coming up, is that we're going to be using those funds to expand our after-school program to include Coyote Valley and Cobb Mountain. And
Right.
so that's going to spend some more of those funds.
Right.
Yeah, we could have gone after the funds, but we weren't really able to support it. Now you guys have found a way to support the ELOP requirements to
Yep.
get
Right.
the funds. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's also another program which Minnie Cannon qualified for, and it's through a consortium. I want to say it's $250,000 a year. We got the first year money last year, and nothing was done. And now we are looking at this year's money of another $250,000, and nothing has been done. So again, that's part of the expansion, because it has to be for after school, and it can only be spent for Minnie Cannon. So we're expanding for, you know, Minnie Cannon, but we're behind the eight ball here. So we have $500,000 that's sitting there that we should have been spending for a program that we haven't been able to implement. And it's not just us. This was a program that, just to kind of backtrack on this one a little bit, the consortium lead and our district, Kelseyville, Lakeport, several schools got together and applied for this money. And then they said, you got it? Oh no, we made a mistake. You don't got it. Then they said, oh no, you do have it. And then they took it back again. and then they gave it to us again. So people were hesitant to spend the money because there was so much back and forth on the program. Well, now it's a solid program, so now we got to get caught up. So we're working on that. Yeah.
And then kind of to Annette's question earlier about how you go and figure out how you can use the restricted funds. I mean, I'm sure there's a pretty easy way to just knock out a whole bunch of stuff that's pretty obvious. But then I guess you got to look at each restriction and say, well, maybe we can get this position in there. What are they doing in that position? So it seems like a pretty tedious task to really take advantage of those restricted funds, and it's just a matter of time that it's going to take to really be able to pick it and really just kind of add more money into relieving our general fund with restricted funds.
Yes, and we have to be really careful because some of the programs that we have and some of the money that we get has the caveat to supplemental, not supplant.
Yeah,
so we
like
have to be really careful about not crossing that line because we don't want to get penalized and have all of the money taken away from us. I mean, we want to do what's right. So there's some of that as well. And so we have to look at it on an individual resource by resource basis. And
even down to like 0.2 FTE you can apply to it, which is still just a whole lot of work to figure that out. So.
Oh yeah. And then as an example, we're partway through the year now, and if we say, oh, okay, and this just happened with Title I, so we were able to salvage some positions with Title I from the general fund. So we moved those positions in first interim, budgeted them in Title I, but yet the monies, they were being paid out of Quad Zero, general fund. So now that we fixed the budget, now we have to go back and we have to undo all their payroll in the general fund and put it on the restricted side in Title I. Then we have to change their position funding so that the future payments will go into Title I. So there's a lot to it. And like I said, we want to make sure that we are doing supplemental and not supplanting in all of the stuff that we do.
Last clarification, that what you're referring to, that position in particular, is not reflected in this, right?
The Title I?
The transfer of.
Yes, that is reflected in here. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. So that was approximately, I want to say $300,000.
Oh,
yeah. That the Quad Zero was relieved of.
Nice.
Approximately.
Yeah. So over time, you'll slowly be able to see where you can pick money out. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to jump in with some clarification for our CSEA friends because they were using a list that was old earlier today, and what she was just talking about, moving those instructional aides over to Title I, is why why those positions are no longer on our district deficit elimination plan. But that's going to be something that school sites are going to have to determine through their SIPSA process and their Title I plan. So that's something that we're going to have to talk about some more, and I can talk to you more about that later if you like.
And then for when that moves over, that just means we don't have to eliminate that position at all, or it just transfers to another position?
At that point, it's going to be up to we've taken those positions out of the general fund and put them in Title I, so that then becomes a school site. They're going to have to take a look at their budget and see, and that's a discussion that we're planning on having with principals and
how they can best support themselves with what they.
Yeah, so that's going to be something that the school site councils are going to have to take a look at.
Yeah, so they'll need to update their Title I school-wide plans. They'll need to update their SIPSAs, all of that information to match what it is that we're doing. And all of our schools have a Title I school-wide plan that has previously been approved by the board, but there was no implementation of that in all these years past. So we're trying to get that caught up, and then, as he said, they're gonna have to update all of their plans so that it reflects more accurately. Yeah.
Joey, did you want? I was just wondering, this is the first interim report, and so the second interim, a lot of those things will be cleared up at that time?
Well, yes.
But it doesn't change the numbers?
Well, no, it's not going to change the numbers.
Okay.
So, I mean, not as far as that situation like with the paraeducators that were in Quad Zero and now they're in Title I. That's not going to change. I mean, I can't imagine that a school site council is going to say, no, we don't want to save those positions, put them back. Because then if we had to put them back into Quad Zero, those would be positions that would be up for elimination again. So we're saving those positions by putting them into Title I, where they technically should have been for several years now, several years past, and have not been.
There shouldn't be as many changes between first interim and second interim as there were. Because all the cleanup that Tanya has been doing, the number of times I've walked, you're not going to believe what I just found.
The 3 elementary schools, are they all Title I then? They can.
The 3 elementary schools and the middle school.
And the middle school.
Mm-hmm. They're Title I. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I guess my questions are sort of in 2 buckets. My first concern is, the fact that we've baked in these 6 positions into the budget, which for me is a challenge because I don't have any information about how the decision process went to come to using these 6 positions to make the budget balance. So that's the first part of my concern. But assuming that is how it goes, I'm looking at a lot of the overspending. In my mind, it's overspending, but now I'm hearing why, because, we have to spend it. It's really hard to look and see what is, I guess you can look at restricted and see what is and what isn't. But I just have questions, like travel and conferences. I mean, why did we budget 80,000, but now, we're projecting 230,000 in travel and conferences? Are we saying that there's grant money that we have to spend and we think that we're going to be able to spend $150,000 in travel is that what we're saying right there, or?
So there's one program that I can think of right off the top of my head, and that is specifically, and I looked at this today, it's $111,000, and it's for training. That's it, training. So all you can spend that money on is training. And it even gets narrower because it's only for kitchen staff. How are we going to spend $111,000 on training for kitchen staff? I mean,
so we have those funds, and that's all we can spend them on.
Mm-hmm. And now that I've got some of this budgeting stuff cleaned up, so now what I'm going to be doing, the next phase of this is, as I was talking about going and spending time with each department, is in the cafeteria program, I'm going to be going and saying, okay, in this resource, I don't remember what resource number it is. What are the requirements? What are the limitations? What are the restrictions? Is it specifically just because it says KIT training, meaning the kitchen training, kitchen infrastructure training. So I need to look at that resource in greater detail from CDE and the funding source and say, okay, it says training, kitchen training. What does that entail? Does that entail more than, does it entail that something that I can do training and I can make purchases of food service equipment?
Or
because it's kitchen infrastructure.
Right. I mean, are there, I'm just wondering, the director of food services, could her salary come out of there and then she provide training? No.
Nope.
Okay.
No, there are 3 programs that I can think of right now, and the funds are going to expire at the end of this year, okay? And those are 3 that I printed out today because I want to make sure that those 3 I hit up with and I already sent an email to the kitchen manager, said we need to meet in the beginning of January. We have this plan that we need to do, and then we have these other resources. So I need to figure out, here's the allowable expenditures that I can do in these programs. Then I need to meet with her and say, okay, how can we get this implemented? How can we get this done? Let's move forward and start getting it implemented. So again, the one that I'm thinking of, there's $111,000 there. And by the name of the title, it tells me I can only spend it on training. But I know that there has to be more to that. because they're not going to give you, I mean, they gave us more than that. We've spent some of it, but they're not going to give you $111,000 and say, you can only spend it on training.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I have to look into those more. And we have quite a few of those. In addition, we do have the CTIG, the Ag grants, and secondary specialized program, the bug grant. The bug grant, yeah, the K-12. Some of those programs, they have, they are specifically for, like the Ag, it's traveling to go to the FFA workshops. It's traveling to go to different things. So there are some categorical programs that are very specific in having travel in them. That wasn't budgeted. They weren't budgeted properly. So you see some of those increases because they are now budgeted properly. And again, we're budgeting it right now as if we're going to spend those funds fully. We may not be able to do that fully this year. And some of those programs will allow us to carry over a small balance. As an example, Title I has a restriction. You cannot carry over more than 15% from year to year. You know, some programs don't have a limit on when you can carry over, but they have a drop dead date of when you have to have the funds expended by. So all of those different criteria we have to look at.
So it makes it really tough for you to do your job. I get that. It makes it really hard as an analyst to look at where to cut, because I mean, you know, everyone loves to say, oh, you don't want to cut these positions? Well, where do you want to cut then? There's no way to answer, for the layman to answer that question, because you can't have that conversation when you don't know exactly what you can spend every dollar on.
Right.
So it's, you know, these groups that are meant to have these strategic conversations about how we're going to, you know, what we're going to cut out of the budget, it's almost like we're set up to fail because we don't have all of the information we need to do it successfully. Which brings me to my second set of questions. I'm looking at your projections, and, you know, we're overspending $2.5 million every year. We're not going to fix that by cutting personnel. It's impossible, not in a district our size.
Again, some of that's in there is one-time funds that have to be expended, okay? And, you know, without going through resource by resource and, you know, well, on this resource, you know, here's what it is for this year and the next 2 years. There's not a simple answer.
Right.
Okay, there's not.
Right.
Now, we're going to have to be, you know, provide as much of that information in the budget workshops that we're going to do, to provide as much information as we possibly can to make that decision-making process more informed.
Right.
Okay.
And I guess that's my request, is that, you know, we talk about the budget reduction plan. In my opinion, I'm not a fan of how the plan actually happened. I'm not a fan of the process. I don't like the way it all went down. So I'm hoping going forward, as it's clear that we need to continue to make reductions, we need to agree as a decision-making community that we're going to have the hard conversations, because I look at the state average, you know, school districts, for the most part, spend about 80% of their budgets on personnel. According to the pie chart in the presentation, we're running at a lean 74%, and I don't know how we can keep eliminating people when we're already way more efficient with our personnel.
The 74% is a misnomer when you look at it. You have to break that apart. You have to look at what we're spending in salaries on the unrestricted side, which is a much higher number, and what we're spending on salaries on the restricted side, because it's very different numbers. I ran those numbers today, and I do not remember them off the top of my head, but they're very different numbers. We are not, I mean, granted, when you lump it all together, we're running at 74, but that's not where we're at when you look at the unrestricted side of the budget. It's significantly higher.
Yeah, and I would just argue that, okay, so let's compare apples to apples to other districts in that same way then. And, you know, and just looking at districts like Kelseyville, I mean, they have 350 kids more than we do, and yet their operating expenses year over year are about the same as ours. Why is that? I think we need to start asking these hard questions and not keep looking at our list of our organization chart and figuring out which people we're going to pick off. It just doesn't.
Well, we're not picking off people. We're looking at evaluating positions. We're not picking off people.
Okay, so I'll change what I said. I don't think that we can keep cutting positions out of our district. And that's what, since we're in the discussion period, I think I need to share with the board that I'm going to have to abstain from the vote to approve the budget. I think that you are doing an amazing job, and this is not about the way the numbers have been assembled. I know nothing about why we've chosen to bake in the 6 positions that we've baked in to make this budget work. I would like to see an analysis. There are other big expenses in the district that I don't know that have been considered. I just don't know. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that it's not correct. I'm saying that I don't have the district hasn't had enough time to educate me, I feel, to feel comfortable with saying that baking these 6 positions into this budget is the right way to go to make us positive over the next 3 years. So I'm probably going to abstain from the vote.
Tanya, those 6 positions came from, how was that decided?
The positions were identified last year in the deficit elimination plan.
The 3 phases, the one that came up.
The different phases, those positions, the positions that were identified are all identified on that list in some shape or another.
And that hasn't changed much over the last
That
year.
hasn't changed since, I mean, I have done no change to that list that was created last year. Jeff and I have not met to make any changes to that list. That was something that was created last year.
And I think it should be thrown out the window and started over again from scratch. It was a garbage process. It was a ridiculous process, and it needs to be done correctly.
With that being said, those 6 positions being eliminated from our first interim report, then we don't have a positive budget.
Correct. If we did not eliminate those positions in the budget, we would be qualified right now, which would change it would change to a qualified status. We would have to present with our next interim, we would have to present a plan to the county office of how we are going to bring our budget in line. We would have to do 3 interim reports during this period. So it changes completely what we need to do. So, but yes, that's what it does. It changes us to qualified without those positions being built into the budget.
Now, I understand that. And Zoe, I just want to defend my position for a moment here. I understand that it's a lot of work if it weren't to pass, which is why I'm not voting no. I'm just saying I don't have enough information. But my response to that is there are other places in this budget that could have been changed in order to make the budget positive in the next 3 years. We could have said we're not going to bus any of our kids anywhere in the next 2 years. I know that's a ridiculous statement, but we could have spelled that. We could have told that story and kept our personnel and said that's how we're going to balance our budget. There are other things that could have happened, other options other than cutting positions. I'm not saying that cutting positions isn't the right solution. I'm just saying I don't know that it's the right solution because there hasn't been an analysis. There hasn't been a quality, high-level analysis that really looks at all of our expenditures and what we're spending money on and where we're going as a district. These positions that, I don't even know which positions we're talking about. And so I don't know.
Well, I think the fact that was brought together with almost a completely different leadership, that maybe with experience from 7 months here between few principals and stuff, whether they see a way to possibly make some changes to that. Is that what you're referring to? And if it doesn't mean changing the plan doesn't, as long as we can meet that number, right, is not going to impact the 3 interims that would need to be done if we go qualified. We just need to meet that number.
Well, if we're qualified, we're saying that we don't meet that number.
Yeah, sorry.
We don't meet that number if we're qualified.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, and it's not that it's, you know, it's more work for me or anything like that. I'm just explaining the difference between a positive budget certification versus a qualified budget certification. It makes no difference to me. It's the same amount of work, no matter what. You know, it just means there's one extra reporting period, big deal. I mean, you know, you're already at the end of the year, you're preparing to close, so you already know what those numbers are going to be looking like anyways. So last year, I believe you guys had to do a third interim. You were qualified last year. This is this budget being built is a positive step. You know, and again, if we have budget committee meetings or whatever it is, and it's determined that we're not going to eliminate those 6 positions, but here's the other things that get us to a number that we need in order to stay positive, by all means, I can change the budget to reflect that. Yeah. This is just the budget that is reflective. This budget is no good the day after it's published. Because the criteria out there in the world changes. So I mean, technically it's invalid the day after because, oh, whoops, now this has changed and this has changed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Tanya,
so yeah.
question.
Yes.
So the positions that are on the list to be cut were basically already decided last year and we're just taking a vote on it? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Those positions in some manner were identified on the list from last year, yes.
And so we're just stamping, yay, let's finish part 2 or drive the knife in deeper or however you want to put it.
No.
No.
No. So what we're doing is we're saying that, yes, these are we're approving the budget as Tanya is presenting it. The deficit elimination plan was part of the budget when it was adopted in June. And so it's not a new thing. It has been part of our budget since we adopted it in June. And
it was developed well before that.
Yes.
Well, there were some, yeah, there were, and there have been adjustments to it.
Are the positions eliminated effective immediately, or
No,
is it
no.
like end of the
No,
school
no, no.
year
Yeah,
and things
it's-
could change?
It would be, yes, so that the positions would be eliminated. We would go through the layoff process, and they would be eliminated at the end of the fiscal year.
And I feel like we kind of had this discussion before, which was, you know, we're trying to get ourselves to a positive. And so we had all the meetings, we did everything that we could do. These things were identified, and we agreed on it with the caveat, if we don't have to do it, and we can find a different way to do it, there's still that option.
Exactly.
And
I don't
that option still
Yeah, I
stands
remember that.
right now.
I
Yes.
don't remember ever having meetings and agreeing on anything. I remember
We did it in open
Public
session.
yeah.
not
Open
when-
session in
Okay,
June.
so I wasn't on the board when
Right.
that happened.
Well, I don't know. I know there was, it was a matter of this is what we've picked, and it doesn't mean it doesn't have to work out this way. If we can figure out another way, we can still figure out another way, which is the same thing right now. It doesn't matter if we use that plan to get to the number we need to get to or we don't. We just need to get to that number. But we also need to get that number by March 15th.
So what I see is that the first interim report, if we're, agreeing to, or if we're passing the first interim report as presented by Tanya, that still gives us the time to look at how we're going to do the implementation if needed.
Right, and I guess I'm just bringing up that and I'm glad that it's coming up again, just in case it got missed or, somebody's watching, that's unclear, but, or didn't have a chance to see it, but we did have a very similar discussion in open session.
Yeah, but it
about-
wasn't, there was never an analysis done. There were never numbers put to anything. There was never we never talked about what does it really mean to what do these positions cost? What does it cost? What does transportation cost? What does it cost to run the high school, Mini Cannon, Cobb, CVE? What are the operating expenses? We never had those really hard conversations. We just went straight to asking the principals what positions they felt they could live without.
So the analysis was done, a numeric analysis and a dollar amount was done last year. I have seen that document. Now, whether that was shared or not, I don't know. I wasn't here. But I have seen that document.
It was never, I don't believe it was ever part of any board agenda.
Okay, I don't know. Again, I was not here. So but I have seen a document that has analysis done.
And it's really not the point. The point that I was trying to make is, here we are, still using a budget reduction plan that it's clear that many people were not satisfied with, but we have it, it's what we've used. I understand that it's what we've used to make this first interim and the multi-year projection work. I still don't feel like the board has ever seen that the district has gone through a line by line, and they're just all of the options that we have as a district have not been considered, and I think it's important because, once again, if we really are in the kind of trouble that it looks like we're in, it's not going to be resolved by eliminating positions.
So Annette, you have mentioned several times that there are multiple expenses in here that are large expenses that could be reduced that we haven't taken a look at.
Yeah.
You've mentioned transportation.
Mm-hmm.
What other expenses?
Well, there's
see.
two big, if you look at the pie chart, there's two big areas. There's operations and there's personnel. And so I think we need to take all of our district operations apart, piece by piece by piece. And we need to look at like school districts that have the same budget that we have and the same ADA and the same enrollment and see where they're spending their dollars. You know, I mean, let's have some experts come in and talk to us about where they think we may be able to be more efficient. I mean, we heard from the budget presentation that we are in a donut hole. You know, our community makes too much money. Our houses are worth too little money. You know, we are not ever going to get enough money from the state because our population isn't special needs enough, that we're not poor enough. Whatever it is they think we're not enough of, we don't have enough. And so we're slowly bankrupting ourselves, and we have to start having some of these really hard conversations that might include reducing personnel, but are other parts of our budget as well. It doesn't have to happen tonight, but it definitely should start happening soon before we need to do the next year out, because that's when
Right.
it gets really ugly.
Well, and we are in discussion. We're planning on having 2 different budget input and information meetings in January. One that will be more for staff and one will be more for community members. One of the things that will be different from the way that it happened last year is that last year people came in, were told, yep, we're in a budget crisis, tell us what your ideas are. And it was this open-ended, where people ended up talking about trying to reduce the amount of copy paper we were using, which isn't going to get us there. We're open to all the ideas. And in fact, as you mentioned, transportation, it's one of the things that Michael is looking at some ways with other providers that might reduce our expenses. We don't know yet. We are looking at those things. Anyway, I distracted myself from my own point. Rather than coming in with just and asking people an open-ended, non-directed question, we have a deficit elimination plan. That if someone says, this is a horrible idea, great. What do you propose instead? We'll take a look at anything. And so, because as we look at it, those are not the not the reductions that we want to make, but the ones that we see that we can make, that are, you know, we do not have fluff in the district. And we're looking at things that, say again? Yeah, and that they're not, we're out of good ideas.
Well, sometimes, I think sometimes it's hard to see what's standing right in front of you when you're too close to a situation. And so that's why I recommended possibly asking for some expertise from outside the area to come and take a look. You know, maybe FICMAT would have some good ideas for us. Like I said, I don't think it's something that we have to decide tonight, but I really appreciate your approach, Jeff. I think that it's a really healthy approach. I'm super excited that we have Tanya, because clearly she knows what she's talking about, and she's going to make sure that we get through this process in a way that is going to, you know, help us sustain ourselves. But you know, I think regardless of how good Tanya is and how good you are, we are going to have to make some really hard decisions about our operations.
Yep.
And I think that people just need to be prepared to have those conversations, because it's not going to be a fun thing to do. It's going to get ugly.
Well, talking about, on one hand, you're talking about transportation. I don't know how Lean are running, but Calistoga's loaned us 2 buses here because we can't even keep our buses running. On the other hand, you've got a school site that's got one of the biggest populations of students about to lose what's equivalent to a vice principal. Right. So it's really a matter of where, but I don't really have a point other than to say what you're saying is, I mean, how do we look at it?
We're trying to run as lean as we can.
We're going to have to reinvent MUSD if we want to survive. And it's going to take creativity. It's going to take help from outside the district, maybe. And it's going to take a lot of people, you know, understanding that their favorite part of MUSD might not be around anymore. And I'm not talking about people specifically. I'm talking about maybe programs. You know, I don't know what I'm talking about right now. And that's part of my problem, is that I don't have enough information, and all of you do. And so that's why there's 5 of us. But I think that I really hope, as far as deficit elimination goes, that we start from scratch and just give up whatever it was that we have from last year, because there's nothing good coming from that, I don't think.
By voting tonight, we are voting in that implementing the deficit elimination plan that is currently presented. Correct?
As part of the budget work that Tanya has done, it is the same deficit elimination plan that has been in place since June.
And that doesn't, but as you said, tomorrow it's an open book. It is going to continually change. It could continually change. So that still gives us the time to change our plan.
So again, you know, we have those meetings scheduled we're going to have meetings scheduled with staff and with the community. So if we're able to come up with some cost-effective ideas that exceeds what is currently in the budget, then by all means, we change that for second interim reporting. This is just what it stands at right now, today. So it's not written in stone to happen, you know, for all the way through to the end of the year. It's the budget is a fluid document. The deficit elimination plan, whatever that might be, however it evolves, will be incorporated in however it evolves, and at the request of the board. How you guys want that to be implemented and done, that will be modified and changed within the reporting. And if it's done before second interim, it'll be in second interim. If it's not done until after second interim, then it'll be in budget adoption. So, you know, it's that part of it is fluid. We can make that change, you know, in the next reporting period. Okay. So, yeah.
Well, just to clarify, the budget was due yesterday, and if we don't vote for it, it doesn't do anything for us but cause us more headache, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
So,
it's
correct.
just a matter of,
Yeah.
I mean, we know we got work to do.
Yes.
Approving tonight's budget isn't setting us in stone in any way.
But I think that there's two things that we really need to think about, though, before second interim, and that is what can we do now that can. I'm concerned about losing any more personnel. I feel like we are running on a skeleton crew as it is, and I would just like to see the district work really hard to figure out a way to reduce that six people, 6 positions, if possible, before.
And we are doing that. So as I said, there were 3 positions that we already moved from the general, from Quad Zero, and we moved those into Title I. We saved those positions. Those positions were in the deficit elimination plan. We've already saved those 3 positions, okay? Just with one, reevaluating, looking at the Title I school-wide plans, looking at all that information, boom, I can save these positions. I've already implemented that. I've already done it. It's in this budget. So whenever
by the way, thank you for doing that work.
Whenever we can save positions, again, the idea is to spend your most restricted dollars first. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. And that's what we're trying to do here. And yes, it's going to take looking at it and doing a deeper dive. We are doing that currently, and we'll continue to do that and bring information forward. And I'm hopeful that in these budget sessions that we're going to come out with some more productive things than to say, let's just eliminate copy of paper, because that's not going to do it.
Well,
and that's just not going to do it.
Which is why I hope that we bring in we either do some professional development about how to get it done, or we bring in some folks that can help us, that aren't, that can have fresh eyes, because we can talk till we're blue in the face, but people are always going to want to protect what they love the most, and clearly we can't afford everything that we love. So we're going to need some help.
So we do have one more question over here, and then we're going to have to take a vote.
Excuse me. I was wondering if the board could ask for clarification as to the 6 positions and how many people that'll affect, because although it's 6 positions, those positions hold more than one person.
No, it's 6 individuals. It's 6 position people. It's a teacher, it's a translator, it's a technology specialist, and it's 3 campus supervisors.
May I? It's actually, it's 9 instructors.
No, those you were talking when I tried to explain. That's an old list that we have made some adjustments to.
If you have something to say, you have to come up to the mic. What list?
Current. I'm sorry, Leslie. I thought I had given you the current list. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, I thought we talked about it at our, okay. Okay.
So I do want to say that, in the meeting notes, Janelle, if it can be really specific on some of the things that we talked about as far as what the board would like to see come into play in between now and the second interim, just so that when we look back at the meeting notes.
Good luck. It's recorded, thankfully.
Yeah, it's recorded. Okay. Now is the time to have a motion to approve the first interim report as presented. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the first interim report.
I second. So I have first from Chris, or a motion from Chris, and a second from Allison. All in favor say aye.
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 And
And your vote? And your vote, Zoe?
Oh, my vote is aye. And then, is there any non-approval
No.
and abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, we have 3 yeses, 1 no, and 1 abstention. Okay, going on to item B, approval of the ad service contract for the AOR inspection service for Tallman Gym project. And AOR is Inspector of Record.
Yes, ma'am. Really simple. Project ran long. Inspector needs to be on board longer. A little bit of nuance to that. This is a flat rate contract. We don't like to sign those. It's our preference that we get charged hourly. But this specific inspector will only work on flat rate. It is a bit of a problem to find inspectors that'll come up here, especially class 1 inspectors, which is what is required for projects that have structural elements. So like the new middle school gym will require a class 1 inspector. We are already trying to lock an inspector down for that project. But as I said, it's a flat rate contract. We don't prefer them. We don't like them. We lost our inspector for Tallman and we're rather desperate.
So I think his estimate was 22 hours a month for 2 months, right?
22 hours a month for 2 months, yeah.
Does that seem reasonable? Even if it's a flat rate, I mean.
That's his just blanket flat rate. Is it
a not to exceed in 2 months?
Pardon?
Would it be considered a not to exceed
No,
that
that
in
would
2
be
months?
what it is in 2 months.
But he won't go over that.
He won't go over that, no.
Yeah.
No.
And why were we late?
Pardon?
And why?
Legacy, DSA legacy projects.
Oh, the ones that we had to close
Yeah,
before we could even.
that is correct.
So, just really quick, and it's just something minor, but I was looking at the formula, the 4 times 22 times 4. Should the 4 on the formula on the, it doesn't change the 23,760 cost, but if we're signing a contract, I think it should be a 2 for 2 months instead of a 4 for 4 months.
It's 4 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah, I did the math too, because I was like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
wait a minute, that doesn't work. But then I calculated, I was like, oh, 20.
Yeah, it looked funky to me too. It looked funky to me
Why is there a
too.
4 there instead of a 2?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be by 2 months. So I just did it, multiplied the hours by the total. I just total
Yeah.
hours by his.
Elementary math.
Don't feel bad, Madam President. I think it got us all. My first look at it, I was like, wait a minute.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, let's get a motion to approve item B, approval of the ad service contract for Inspector of Record for the Tallman Gym project. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the Tallman Gym extension of the ad services of the Inspector of Record.
Okay, it's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, second by Net. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Abstentions? Okay, it's passed 5-0.
And if I may, we can't help with operational budgets. I know you folks are struggling with that. But we're in 32 districts across Northern California.
Yeah.
If there's someone in those districts you want to talk to, we'd be happy to facilitate an introduction.
Thank you. Thank you. He likes our district.
It's got a place in his heart.
Okay, item C, approval of resolution 132425, authorizing filing of application for state allocation board administered facility hardship and or facility hardship seismic mitigation programs. This is an action item. I think it's just
You want me to, okay, yeah, I can comment on C and D. C and D are both resolutions that we need to have adopted to be able to apply for funds related to Prop 2 that passed. This is one of the levels of support that we received from King Consulting, that they sent us these and said, hey, you guys need to have this, as well as a facility master plan, which we will help you with later. But for now, this is what we've got to do.
Okay.
Checking boxes, jumping hoops.
Thank you. So do I have a motion to approve resolution 13 24-25, authorizing filing of applications.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe Ray can answer this for me. Ray, I know that DSA has, does DSA have some sort of funding for, or maybe the state has some kind of funding for projects that had to do seismic work based on DSA requirements, which would be most of the Tallman Gym funds. Do you see that as being something that we can go after just based on the Tallman Gym? Because I don't know if I was talking to you about it, but I feel like the amount of money we spent on the Tallman Gym for what we see in the Tallman Gym, it looks great and everything, but man, it sure was expensive. And if we could recoup
Yeah,
some funds.
a lot of that was, well, a lot of it was HVAC, a lot of it was roofing, but there was voluntary structural that we did on that project. There's a good chunk of it. And we're working with King. They're going for that.
Great.
That additional fund. Yes.
And then it requires and you probably don't know this, or maybe you guys have talked about it because you would be helping with it. That resolution requires us to have a facilities master plan.
5 years.
So we are already working on the facilities master plan.
Are you guys just doing it in-house, or
Yes.
are you guys going outside?
Yeah, we're doing it in-house.
Great. All right, that saves some
So
money.
you're already paying for it.
That saves a lot of
so
money, actually.
We now have architects on staff. So we brought our architect up. We met with Michael. Our next step is we'll meet with Jeff. We're just going to do that in-house.
Great.
Okay, that was my question for item D, so that's perfect. So we have the motion. It's been moved by Chris, I think, and seconded by Allison. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And not in favor, and pass 5-0. Okay, item D, approval of resolution 14-24-25, authorizing filing of application for state allocation board administered programs for Middletown Unified School District. Same kind of thing, correct, Jeff? And do I have a motion to approve item D?
Move to approve.
It's been moved by Annette,
Second.
seconded by Allison, or by Patsy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, was there any discussion? Any questions? Okay.
It's pretty much for just, not necessarily specific to seismic, it's just necessary to get funds back from the state for all the money we're spending on our bond.
Great. And passed 5-0. Okay, on to approval of the memorandum of services and agreement with the Ed Venture More, EDMO. That is the special ed.
No, this
No.
is not special ed. This
This is
the
the after-school
ELOP
program.
funding. So
Yeah.
this is, state gave us ELOP funds, said you have to use these to allow students to have 9-hour days. And so this is the after-school program. We currently work with EDMO at Mini Cannon. This is expanding their services to Coyote Valley and to Cobb. The great part about this is that it will not be any hit to our general fund, Quad Zero funds. This is all restricted money.
Okay, do I have a motion on the floor to approve the memorandum of services and agreement for Ed Venture More? EDMO.
I move to approve the memorandum of services with EDMO.
It's been moved by Chris. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second by Allison. All in favor say aye.
Discussion?
Discussion?
So,
And
just to expand on it, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning that I know that last year's intercession days probably impacted a lot of parents. This is going to cover, in the agreement at least, it says it has intercession in there, which should help support some of the parents when we're off on like October.
Yes, thank you.
It's also going to expand the program that seems like it's been a success at Mini Cannon because it's filled up to the point where no other sites could use it. But now we're going to have it at Coyote Valley, which will make up for losing the daycare, right? So now we're going to have a resource at Coyote Valley for those students whose parents work late to have their students be able to hang out, Cobb as well. And then it also could get us some form of summer school.
Yes.
Because right now we do the summer school, the minimum required of summer school, and maybe we're able to accommodate more students in the summer school that need the assistance.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That was-
It's worth mentioning. It's good
Yeah,
stuff.
for
And
sure.
they're-
It
they're
absolutely
talking
is.
about
Thanks,
all this
Chris.
hardcore
Yeah.
stuff. It's like, man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you read through it, it's got all kinds of great stuff in it. So
Yep.
Yeah.
the last three things are really good.
Okay.
All right, I'm done discussing.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, passed 5-0. Okay, board-related items, upcoming board trainings.
So 9A, I just put on there, Madam President, so that we would be able to have a way of notifying the public. Of course, there's, hi, Jenny. That I know that the public, for instance, as I started, was interested in making sure that I was getting professional development. These are opportunities for the school board to have professional development. And so I want to make sure that people are aware that that is something that is going on. Also want to make sure that people know that it is not a violation of the Brown Act for multiple members of the school board to get together to participate in a training. And so want to make sure that that is public and all above board. And so there's nothing to vote on here. It's purely for information, more so for public information, because you guys already know the trainings that you're going to.
Yep, yep. And we've signed up, all of us have signed up for a number of trainings, so we're really excited about that.
Yep.
Okay, so that was informational, and we're on to item B, board policy process.
Zoe?
Yes.
Really quick, actually, never mind. Keep going. Sorry.
Did you have something you wanted to say about our trainings?
No.
Okay.
I was going to ask a question, but I think I answered it myself.
Okay. Okay, board policy process.
So when we put this on the agenda, we didn't realize that we would be at 10 to 9 when we got here. So I don't know how much in depth you guys want to get into this at this point, or if it could be something that we discuss as part of a study session where we talk about our governance norms. But the policy of approving the process of approving board policies, too many P's in there for me to get my mouth around. We have been sending them out. You guys have an opportunity to read them during first read. They get approved. The second time they're on the agenda, it is possible for policies to be on here more than once as a first read if we decide we have questions, if we want to address those things. I have seen a board policy committee, which would have 2 members of the board. I have seen that be something that has been taken care of over email, so that we would email out the policies so that trustees have 2 trustees have an opportunity to read through them ahead of time and to ask questions or give input prior to them coming to first read. I don't know if in 2024 we want to have a policy committee that actually gets together and sits in the same room at the same time. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there at this point for wanting to know what you guys want, what you're comfortable with as far as how we approve board policies. Oh, wait, and one other thing. Most of them come from CSBA, so that they are making adjustments based on updated laws and regulations, and so many of them are, here's what your policy needs to be now, but sometimes within them we have options.
Yeah, I noticed there was one that was highlighted that something, a whole paragraph was removed. Was that removed as part of the CSBA process or part of our internal process of saying we want to take this out because it's an option to take out?
I don't know which one we're talking about.
I know. I'm
Was that in first read? Was it first read or second read?
I was just curious. No worries. It's okay.
First read?
Oh, about drug testing. Was it about drug testing?
No.
No?
I believe it's the volunteer.
Okay.
It's talking about, it breaks it down where.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
We want
exactly.
everybody to be fingerprinted if you're going to be with our kids, where the board policy said if you're with a teacher at all times, you don't have to be fingerprinted. But, so.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Oh, okay. So that was a volunteer?
The volunteer
Number 4?
assistance.
Okay. So, it's helpful, I think, beforehand to get some more information to know that what choices we have. Does it have to be something put together by everybody getting together in Janelle's office and going through it. I don't think so. Our two board members. If there's some way that we could get the information ahead of time, and I like that idea, at least for whether it be all the board members get the same information and then respond back, or just we decide on a committee where there's only two board members that are part of that, and then bring it back to the board with their recommendation.
Well, and the difference being that if we have two, they can discuss.
Yes, and that's why we had two, and that's why it was a superintendent committee at that time. Zoe?
Can it be Google Doc and then everybody can put their input in?
Yeah.
Can't do that with all five.
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
Two.
Okay, sorry.
Still have to be two.
I mean, most of them are just changed by law, and we can't do anything about it anyway. I don't know if it's worth saying, if it's something that the district is really like, oh man, the board really needs to make the call on this. Maybe that's one that gets pointed out, but for the most part, I mean, if we were to, you guys spent a whole bunch of time doing that, and then when we were approving all those, it still took a lot of time. So I don't know if it's more of a matter of what are the hard decisions in the policies.
I like the idea of having two board members sort of take the lead on looking at everything that comes up in the packet, in the monthly packet that Janelle gets. She can just, as soon as she gets it, she can send it right to the two board members, and they can decide, how they want to split it up. And then when it goes up for first read, they can present them all and say, okay, on this one, these are the choices that we have to make. This is kind of like we did in our process.
Yeah.
And it just makes it easier for us to get through the approval process when we've got two people who have really put their eyes on it.
Did it come to you an email?
Yes.
DSCSB
Well, they give you a
email?
heads up like, hey, packet A or December package I just got an email tonight that the December packet's ready for updates.
Oh, got it. So
Okay.
would it be a matter of just forwarding it, or would it be a whole lot more work to do for?
It could be either or. I mean, I could forward it or put it in the spreadsheets how we did before, where you could actually make notes and they could talk back and forth.
Yeah, I like.
Also, too, just so if you're looking at the first read, under that volunteer one, you can put recommendations right in here so that when the board agenda is posted, everybody else can see also what the recommendations are. And that's where you'll notice that I put volunteers, what our adjustment, that highlight was, what the recommendation is and why it's in there.
So the two board members could actually put they log in and then they put their recommendations in.
You'd have to send the recommendations to me of what you wanted,
Oh,
and
I
then they
see.
would be put into the
And
agenda
then-
so everybody could see the recommendations ahead of time.
Got it,
And the
okay.
public also.
Is it something that, Jeff, that you two can figure out the process and then send it? Maybe pull the group and ask who would be interested, or who would like to be two of the board members that would like to do that? Let's pull them now. Anybody would like to be on that committee? Okay, I'm going to assign. Just kidding.
And we don't have a roster of board committees. If nobody wants to be on it, we can continue to go through and make what our recommendations are. And then if something comes up that we want to highlight in particular, like making sure that all of our volunteers are fingerprinted, that we make that recommendation to you as part of first read.
No, I like that too. I like the leadership team, your team, Jeff, telling us what you think, when there's choices to be made
Okay.
or whatnot.
Okay.
Okay.
We can do that.
All
Yeah,
right,
and the
that sounds
majority
good.
of them are just law changes anyway. We don't
Yeah.
make choices too much.
Yeah.
We will obey the law.
Here's a check.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, with that being said, we already talked, or that was B, board policy process. Now let's go to C. We have our first read of board policies and administrative regulations. That's for all of us to look at, and they will be coming back to us in January. Item D, second read and approval of board policy administrative regulations.
Do not have to read them all.
1 through 11.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, I move
Yep.
to approve D, second read and approval of board policy. Can we do it as one lump sum?
You guys can do whatever you want.
Yeah, do it, Chris.
Unless somebody has a specific one they
No,
want to pull
do-
out and discuss, they're all pretty straightforward.
I
Okay,
second.
so there's all the second read board policies that have been brought to us for approval. Is there any, there's been a motion from Chris and a second from Annette, and is there any other discussion? Okay, let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Passed 5-0. Okay, 10, student items. Nothing in there. 11, personnel. This is our PAR report. This is an action item. This is new offers, additional assignments and charges, extra duties, stipends, resignations, notices of intent to retire. Approval of personnel items. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the personal action report.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Chris to approve the personal action report. Do I have a second?
I second.
And seconded by Patsy. And any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Passed 5-0. Curriculum and instruction, a review, dashboard, and overview. Superintendent Crane will provide an overview of student achievement data from state testing as reported on the California School Dashboard.
Speaking of my team, I have such a good team. Ta-da! All right, so we have a couple different data sets that we are going to go through. Uh-oh. Ta-da! Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about here's what, so what, and now what. Here's what is, this is what is our data. That's going to be the bulk of the presentation. And then we're going to talk about so what does that data tell us? Now what do we do about it? Where do we go from here? So starting with our overarching data from Smarter Balanced Assessments, 41% of our students were met or exceeded the standard for ELA and almost 30% in math. So you can see that we scored a little bit better in ELA than in math. That's pretty typical for students across the state. Uh-oh. There we go. Another way to take a look at it is by grade. And I'm going to take the microphone so that people at home can hear me. And I'm going to come over here so I can point a little bit. So what this does is the green and the blue are standards are students who met or exceeded the standard. And the yellow, and I'm going to go with orange, kind of a salmon color, are students who did not. And so where you see that line between the green and the yellow, you can see get an idea for by grade level how our students did. And if you look, our students in 7th grade had a jump from where they were in elementary school. And if you look at 11th grade, our 11th grade students, particularly in English, did amazingly well. And we'll talk about why that is coming up. Looking at math, that doesn't have quite the same, again, we knew from the data before that students scored better in English than they did in math. So looking, we have that dividing line is not quite as high. Or here we want it low so that they score high. Science is a new to our dashboard. So we're going to look at it as part of our test scores. 24% of our students met or exceeded the standard for science. When we look at it by grade level, it looks a little bit funky because, oh, shoot, no, wait. Don't accidentally hit it twice. At the high school level, students can take the science test basically whenever they're finished taking science. And so for some of our, in some places, they might only take 2 years of science. They might be finished with it in 10th grade. We have students who took the test in 11th and 12th. And again, this is a new, it's not a new test for our students to be taking, but it's new for us to be paying the level of attention to it that we are. That which is measured improves. And so I anticipate that this will improve in coming years. Not that it's a competition, but looking at our test scores, so these are the averages for how many students, the percentage of students Lake County wide who met or exceeded the standard. This is Middletown USD, and then the statewide average. So you can see that and I can tell you because I've gone through and looked at all of the data by districts, that we are the highest scoring district in all of those areas throughout Lake County. Again, not that it's a competition, although I will tell you that one superintendent told me that they're coming to get us.
Yeah.
But not that it's a competition. So we are the highest scoring district in Lake County. However, in each area, we are also below the statewide average, which gives us, I kind of see that statewide average as a reasonable target, because we're not saying we're going to compare ourselves to the most highest scoring districts in the land. We should at least be at the statewide average. There we go. California School Dashboard is a dashboard of data that is basically an annual overview snapshot. It comes from our Smarter Balanced ELA and Math. Of course, now we're going to be adding science to that. Our LPAC, which is all of our English learners take that test. There's data that we upload from ARIES. So you'll see some of those. And then our local indicators, we report that data to you. We'll see those things. There's status and growth. Different colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. There's dials, and then also 5x5 placement reports, which we will take a look at. This is our overarching district-wide dashboard. And no red anywhere on there. So we're very happy about that. We will see a little bit of red when we get down to looking at the 5x5s, when we see some school-wide data. But that's terrific. And then these are the local indicators that we reported directly to you.
I have a quick question on on how the arrows work. So mathematics we've been really low in, and English we've been high in. Is it just showing that we've improved on mathematics? Is that why the arrow's in the yellow, because we've gotten better over time, and then the English has just kind of stayed flat? Or how does that work?
That is a great question that is answered by our 5x5s, because as great as the dials are, I love the 5x5s, because what they do is they show you where you are, and you're going to have to try. This is my own version of it, because the one that if we cut and pasted it from the website, you think Tanya's slide was difficult to read, it was going to be even littler. So yes, because what they do is they look at status and growth. And so on this left-hand side, you see status. Now, we didn't do great in English language arts. We still scored low. We were still, remember, 41 points below standard. The middle school and mini canon both declined. Overall, as a district, we maintained. Coyote Valley also maintained. Cobb increased. And then you look at where the high school is. The high school on their dashboard is actually blue in ELA, because they scored high and they increased significantly. So if they stay at that same level, but then maintain next year they'll be green. Not because they scored any differently, but just because they didn't increase significantly. So that's that. Okay. And so if we look, we're going to go through these when we get to math. Okay, so I'm going to come back real quick, because you see here, Cobb is over in the increased area in math, and I point that out when we talked about the high school. So when we get up here, when we look at math, well, now Cobb is low and they decline significantly in math. So that's not great. Coyote Valley, and you see where the schools are. And you have this in your packets or with the agenda as well. I did make a change to what's in the agenda. But suspension rate, here's where the high school gets their bad news. Now this one is a little bit different. When we look at academics, you see high and then decline significantly. And you want to get out here to increase significantly. So you want high and increase significantly. When we look at suspension rate and chronic absenteeism, we want low and decline significantly. So you have to remember to switch that. But you have the high school getting their bad news here, but then you look at the middle school, their suspension rate was medium, and they declined, which is a good thing. So really every school has somewhere in there that is their highlight. Chronic absenteeism. High school doesn't get a chronic absentee rating. They just don't. Here, middle school gets their bad news, and then all the other schools, that the 3 elementary schools declined or declined significantly.
How often is this data reported? 2 times a year?
Every year, once a year.
Once a year.
Once a year.
Not a beginning of the year and then the end of the year type thing.
Right. Yeah. This is now from last school year. So what? What does it tell us? We're ahead of Lake County, but we're behind California. On score, students are doing better in ELA than in math. I forgot to point out they actually, though, made more growth in math, so that's a good thing. 11th grade ELA shows the impact of motivation for secondary students. There are really 3 things that go into student test scores. Do they know the material? Are they familiar with the assessment? And are they motivated to do their best? And at the high school, largely driven by Mr. McCall, they did they provided some incentives for students to do their best. And you could really see that impact in the 11th grade ELA. Not quite as much in the math, because you can't, no matter how motivated you are, you can't present what you don't know. So there's a limit to what motivation can do. Every school site has some good news. Staff and students have maintained focus. And when I say in spite of unsettled leadership, I want to be clear. I don't just mean the superintendency. If you look at across the district, our principals have had a lot of turnover over the last couple of years. Our second most tenured principal in her position is in her 2nd year. We have Brandy, who's been in her 8th year, and then Erin is in her 2nd, and everybody else is new in their spot. But our staff and students have maintained focus. You can tell by the test scores. And this is a new bullet that the CDE released an updated list of schools getting targeted support, targeted academic support, and Middletown has no schools receiving ATSI or CSI support. That just came out.
That's a good thing.
That's a very good thing. Yep. Means we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So the big question, now what? So we talked about those 3 areas, about student mastery, about student familiarity with the assessment, and motivation. We are supporting site administrators. We're looking at the data with them, helping them in ways to take a look at the data with their teachers. As far as helping teachers be better teachers, we're also doing some instructional coaching, working with principals, making sure that they are sound on their formal evaluation procedures, working with teachers. And then also not only coaching based on the evaluation procedure, because that's limited and not as frequent. So we're looking for also some more frequent, less formal coaching. This is going to be an area where we're working on quite a bit over the coming years. As far as interim I'm going to skip down to practice and training tests. Practice and training tests are a great way to help students be familiar with the assessment. It's a great way to go through assessment type questions with the whole class and talk about these are the kinds of questions they're looking for. Interim assessments cross that line. They help us know students' mastery, and they help students be familiar with the test. And then also we're going to continue to incentivize our older students in particular. And then to summarize, here's what we talked about: test scores, we talked about science, we talked about the dashboard. So what? Our students are making growth, but they're still behind state averages. And now what? We have work to do, and we're doing that work.
Yay.
And if you guys want to go deeper into this, I will talk test scores and data and what we're doing as a result and instructional coaching for a long time, but in acknowledgement of the time and the energy that you've already spent, that was a very Reader's Digest version. Questions?
Are there any questions of the board? Thank you, Jeff. That was great. No, it's good to see that in writing. You know, I've gone to the website and looked at it, and it's great to have it presented to us that way. Okay, correspondence. Don't see that there's any announcements. Anybody have any announcements? Pending agenda items.
Oh, I have one.
Oh, back to announcements.
No, a pending agenda item.
Oh, pending agenda items. Okay. Okay. We have, looking at it, we have some board policies and ARs coming to us.
Could I add a board policy and AR to that list? Just as a policy that I'd like to put in front of the board to revisit.
Okay.
Policy and AR 5121, grades and evaluation of student achievement. We approved it last, in one of our big things of approvals, and I've just learned after studying it more closely that it's not in alignment with all of the other high schools in the area. Actually, any high school I've looked at is, they all have boilerplate language, and ours is different, and it's not. And I think
We changed
I
our
think,
boilerplate.
No, we kept. I think we kind of morphed it with the new one, but kind of kept some of our old language.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I looked at it, and I just think that we might want to talk about making it more consistent with what other kids are getting at other high schools.
Okay. So, Janelle, you got that? Oh, all right, thanks. Any other pending agenda items? Anybody like to?
Just can I, real quick, just to be, I want to be transparent, that I'm going to start by talking to our high school staff on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact,
I just don't want you to feel, I just don't want you to hear, wait a minute, he's going, like,
no, yeah.
yeah, we want to get high school staff involved.
We would love input from, that would be great if there's any input that they can give, because, I'm just looking at it from a policy consistency perspective, but if there's reasons for us not to change it, I would.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to talk to them.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, important upcoming dates. Well, we have a board meeting on our calendar. 15th of January.
Yes.
It's whose birthday?
Your birthday
Oh,
month.
it's your birthday month. Okay, I like that. Any other upcoming dates that we need to get on the minutes?
Anybody else have a birthday month they'd like to share?
July.
May.
Okay. Oh, we got you. Okay, we want candles. Okay, adjournment. Do I have? Oh, I have a motion to adjourn by Annette. Do I have a second? Are you kidding?
I second.
Allison seconded it. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass 5-0.
Nobody wants to leave.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank